Coming in number 5, we've got SCP-5142. At first, you might laugh at the idea of this SCP. It's pretty goofy and contains references to a song we all know and love. Just about every person who hears it will find themselves singing along at some point, whether it pops up in a meme or if they see a can of assorted diced fruit at the supermarket. A whole lot of fun for the whole family. Well, that is until you realize the scope of the anomaly we're talking about today. We're all familiar with the song Fruit Salad by the Wiggles, right? Perfect. Well, if you've heard this song before, you've been under its mimetic effects. It's just so catchy, right? Like, almost too catchy? It almost makes you crave some fruit salad after listening. Well, if you've ever found yourself with a hankering for some mixed fruits after listening, you're not alone. Apparently the bit where the Wiggles sing fruit salad has mimetic properties and makes people crave fruit salad. At first, it's just a little craving, but with time, they will refuse to eat anything other than the medley. If they hear other nouns within a short period of time after listening to that phrase, these items will also be added to the list of desirable foods. It doesn't matter if these are edible or even remotely safe to consume, folks will try to eat them. The longer this goes on, the more intense the cravings become, to the point where the subject will engage in dangerous and possibly self-harming behavior to acquire said items. Close to a month from the onset of this anomaly, the affected individuals will also start to turn a bluish color and gain incredible amounts of muscle. It's a wild thing to behold, to say the least. Now, this has some very upsetting consequences in the past, like parents potentially consuming their young children alongside a side of honey, or maybe actually eating cars and houses. Not great. However, this is easily remedied. I said that the phrase sung by the Wiggles, fruit salad, is a meme. Thankfully, the refrain, yummy yummy, is the anti-meme. So as long as you listen to a yummy yummy after a initial fruit salad, you'll be free from these effects. So just make sure you listen to it all the way through. Don't, you could become a rampaging ogre of a human, demanding to consume fruit salad, street signs, maybe even the president. Coming in number 4, we've got SCP-5172. This one messes with my brain a little bit. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to think anymore. All of my hotel experiences are now suspect. Did I encounter something like this? Oh boy. SCP-5172 is a strange phenomenon seemingly affecting guests at North American hotels. It gives them the impression that there is a machine there built for the sole purpose of making and dispensing ice. I always took it for granted that hotels had such devices, but according to this document, those aren't standard practice. There's a whole history to this, but we'll gloss over it in favor of the spooky story within. Check out the wiki entry if you want more anomalous ice machine history lessons. Now, anyone who uses one of these so-called ice machines at a hotel will activate what's known as a Zalmunna event. These events are very likely to cause injury or death. In fact, the Foundation discovered SCP-5172 when investigating a string of grisly murders in Winnipeg. Go Canada. So after hallucinating the use of an ice machine, the affected individual will start to feel as if they're being watched. This will develop into confusion and then exhaustion. The fatigue is so intense that they feel as if they can't do anything other than seek out their hotel bed and go to sleep. At this point, if they sleep anywhere other than a hotel bed, the event is cut short. Their lives will be spared. But if they make it to their cozy comfort-in mattress, game over. This is when SCP-5172-1 appears, usually by phasing through the door. 5172-1 is a humanoid entity with extra long arms and a long, needle-like thing extending from its head. It will sit on the victim's chest, inducing a sleep paralysis-like state where they're aware of what's happening, but unable to move or speak. It'll then stab them through the eye with the needle-like extension and begin to harvest material from the person's chest. Using tools from its chest cavity, 5172-1 will begin cutting and scooping 4-centimeter cubes from its victim with relative ease. Starting slowly and picking up speed over time, it usually spends a couple hours hollowing out its victim before getting up and exiting the way it came in. Holy smokes. These creatures have so far only been seen in North American hotels and can actually be stopped through force, but killing one doesn't prevent it from happening again in the future. So let's hope ice machines don't show up anywhere else. Oh, they have. There's one in Amsterdam now. Uh-oh. Coming in number 3, we've got SCP-2728. Anyone living out that terrifying 90s nightmare of a stable job day in, day out? It's weird to think that the cultural zeitgeist at the turn of the century centered on complaining about how stable and boring everything was. Look at us now! SCP-2728 is a strange manifestation of that kind of terror. Here, it's probably easier if I just explain how it works. There's a point in Barcelona where you can see a building that isn't actually there. Like, you stand on the street corner and look up, and then you can view an office building poking up from the skyline that can't be seen from any other angle. The Foundation studied it for a while and saw that it had regular business hours, shut down on Sundays, and was full of people that had real-world counterparts. Interesting. Don't get too close though. It seems that anyone who notices this building and gets up nice and close is brought into their bustling business, made to work their regular hours doing nothing for all eternity. The Foundation sent an agent to check it out, but they discovered that he had been replaced by a near-perfect body double. However, the original agent did his best to reach out via Morse code to let the Foundation know that his life had become hell. Apparently, the folks there function like insects, doing only their job and never anything else. And the city no longer has any outer limits. And from the building, the sky is endless and dark. Coming in number 2, we've got SCP-3966. This is an SCP with a much harder approach to sci-fi than many, with a lot of it being tied up in mathematics and physics. With that in mind, I will probably miss some of the best bits because of the way my brain works, but if you're a fan of hard sci-fi, this is definitely up your alley. 3966 is a neuroactive polypeptide found in human spinal fluid. Apparently it's been sequenced and nothing in it is even close to being human. No one really knows where it came from or what it's doing, but folks affected by it experience higher rates of hypnic jerk. You know that feeling when you're about to fall asleep and then you think you're falling? Well, over time, the researchers concerned with this anomaly became infected themselves and started to feel the effects. They then discover that there are 2 variants of the stuff. Soon enough, it becomes clear that it is a cognitohazard and can spread through just the knowledge of it. And eventually, we learn that it could essentially be something from the 4th dimension, something that we can't fully conceptualize reaching out to us in some way. Just like how folks in a hypothetical flatland couldn't see us if we looked down on them from up above, whatever's behind 3966 has a whole new dimension to exist in, making it impossible for us to see all of it. But if it contacts us in our 3D land directly, we might experience just a bit of it. Coming in number 1, we've got SCP-5346. Careful though, this one might ruin one of your favorite movies. 5346 is a cognitohazardous phenomenon that manifests upon the viewing of a specific scene in Forrest Gump. The classic line about boxes of chocolates triggers some sort of conspiracy theory craziness deep in people's brains. Was the line "life is like a box of chocolates" or "life was like a box of chocolates"? You probably know the answer, but the people affected by this phenomenon, it'll drive them nuts. Some Mandela effect nonsense at its finest. Over time, the people watching this movie will start to feel as if the characters on screen are aware of their presence and are watching them. Glances at the camera, uncomfortable line deliveries, it's a whole rabbit hole to fall down. Apparently those who do fall too deep begin to actually experience some terrifying facsimile of Hanks's Gump in their real life. They will see him around their home, looking in through windows, strolling down hallways, and eventually, it'll get them. Users who posted about this on their favorite conspiracy chat rooms and image boards often end up dead, victims of blunt trauma to the head. And in one case, a note was recovered in their apartment that reads, "Mama always said stand up to snitches." So if you revisit Forrest Gump, maybe don't analyze it too deeply. Coming in number 5, we've got SCP-4335. Damn, lockdown's gonna make this one terrifying again. Like, what did a whole bunch of folks, including myself, do during that extended period of time indoors? Well, what any sane person would do, get back into Minecraft big time. Is this relatable? I know me and my friends did this, but is it true for everyone else? Regardless, you can't deny the popularity and cultural impact of Mojang's block building simulator. Hell, this recent milk crate trend gives off Minecraft vibes at this point, but I digress. We're here to talk about SCPs, aren't we? And this one is a doozy and a half. SCP-4335 is a strange, unexplainable entity that resides within Minecraft. Folks who stumble across it tend to end up pretty freaked out, and for good reason. It looks like someone took a classic Minecraft skin and colored it all black. No face, no features, no garments, just the darkest of dark colors. For reasons beyond our understanding, it also has a cloud of black smoke particles around its form at all times. Sometimes you might catch a glimpse of yellow eyes or a white mouth, but it's not too often that this happens. Sprouting from its back, we've got a set of black tentacles, akin to those one might associate with Slender Man. It really does sound like something born from a mediocre Minecraft creepypasta, but it goes deeper than that. This form isn't just something that goes around griefing people and spooking them with hyper-realistic eyes and blood. This SCP has a goal and seems pretty good at achieving it. It will move from server to server, often private or single player ones, whenever it pleases. And if anyone goes into creative mode, it hops to a new server too. Somehow, this entity, born within the game, has learned that it is a creation of humans, or humanity. It wants out so that it can live a life outside of these bounds. However, it has also decided that humans aren't worthwhile creatures and are motivated by unseemly things. Because of this, SCP-4335 wants to destroy humanity. It has a power that's hard to describe, as outside of a game world it doesn't really make all that much sense. It can create in a way that humans cannot, and it's striving to escape from the digital realm into our own. If and when that happens, things could get very hairy for us reality dwellers. Coming at number 4, we've got SCP-5764. When you navigate to this SCP's entry on the wiki, you'll be presented with only one prompt. Unlike most other pages from the Foundation's files, this one does not feature a classification or a set of containment procedures, just a little bit of text. In red, clickable text, you'll see the words, "Don't click." For those of you who don't want something very heavy weighing on your mind, I'd suggest you follow these instructions. You can stick around if you're curious as to how this one works, as only I have to really experience it to get the idea across. There aren't any cognito hazards or inherent dangers here, but when you click that first prompt, a whole new story opens up. Keep clicking and you'll be responsible for what happens. Alright, you ready to hear what goes on in this entry? If, as a defiant little rat, you click "Don't click," you'll be greeted by another clickable piece of text. This one says, "There is nothing here." But you can click it, and if you do that, you'll get another reading, "There is nothing here." Of course, folks are going to want to keep clicking at this point. If you do so, you get to more emphatically worded pleas not to click, then some threats concerning what might happen to you if you continue, but eventually whatever presence is behind this text relents. They begin talking to you through the information in the clickable text. Apparently they didn't exist until that page was opened, and they will continue existing until you reach the end of the entry. So the more you click and interact with SCP-5764, the closer this entity inches towards death. It's a real emotional roller coaster, with the thing starting out angry, then sad, and then happy that it has someone to communicate with before it goes. Apparently this has happened many times, and the entity knows it will happen again. But the more people that complete this ritual, the shorter its time is before being erased and restarted. At the very end, it bids you adieu, and then you're finally brought to the actual containment procedures. These state that the SCP is an anomaly that affects this page, and every time someone visits it, it gains sentience, and every time they leave the page, it loses it. It can't go anywhere, as the page seems to contain it, so yeah, it can never escape. Folks who read this are also encouraged not to visit the page again, for the sake of the entity. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-3426. We could very well be screwed by this hard to define SCP. It might have something to do with the pattern screamers, and if you're unsure as to what those are, maybe stay in the dark. Some knowledge is better left unlearned. Or you could watch our video featuring them, but that is up to you. SCP-3426 is a phenomenon responsible for the total extinction of a technologically and socially advanced planetary civilization. What exactly that means is still up in the air. It could be an event, an entity, a concept, or many other vague things. Nobody's really come up with a way to properly define it. However, we do know a lot of the characteristics required for the phenomena to begin. And now that I'm thinking about it, we're not in trouble. Earth is much too primitive a planet to be concerned with destruction like this. 3426 focuses on highly advanced civilizations, ones who have figured out an indefinitely sustainable energy source, perfected space travel, and developed a unified theory of the universe. We're a little bit off from that, eh? And interestingly enough, having an organization like the Foundation is also a prerequisite. If these and a few more criteria are met, it begins. Anomalous material corrosion, reality distortion, and corruption of information media spread across the planet, eventually wiping out all intelligent life. Many planets have already fallen to this phenomena, which we have discovered through some very clever usage of drones and probes. For now, we don't meet the advanced criteria, so we're safe. But it seems we're constantly moving towards a future where we might, so keep an eye out. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-6223, the good old Fire and Brimstone radio program, a staple of American horror literature for ages. What's scarier than driving through some backwoods area where all anyone ever listens to is a radio show that paints you as the devil? Better be careful where you stop to eat, right? Well, this radio show is a little more anomalous than your average brainwashing broadcast. It seems to find a way to communicate directly with the sinners it designates and ensures that they have the worst possible time while trying to escape. Headed by DJ Slimy, SCP-6223 is a broadcast that plays in all sorts of backwater places. He fields calls from people looking to confess their sins, although he plays no part in absolving them. This holy broadcaster believes firmly that there is no heaven, that pop culture has sold people the idea of it to push out more products. Nope, hell is the only option for anyone, and finding a nice cozy place in the lake of fire is all that one can hope for. Then he ensures that any listeners are going to join him there by influencing all those around to rip and tear and maim anyone who passes through with a guilty conscience. And the more you listen, the more you hear yourself in the proceedings. It's designated safe, but the doctor investigating swears that one of the people heard on the broadcast sounds just like her. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-6002. The world we live in is constantly changing, and we have a whole lot to do with that. Humans have probably had the largest impact on the planet Earth than any other living being since the dawn of time. We build, we destroy, we conquer. A lot of stuff gets swept under the rug as a result. Ever heard of an A-turn? Didn't think so. SCP-6002 is what we can only assume is the Tree of Life. From here, all life sprouts. Like Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, this tree is the symbol of all that is living, and if it were to be destroyed, the rest of life would follow. It seems that the Foundation discovered such a tree in the early 20th century and decided that its traditional wards were not doing enough with it, so they assigned some doctors to it and began research. Bad call all around, as they soon discovered. Every branch of this tree represents a species of living creature, and sometimes even concepts of life and health. If a branch representing an entire breed of dogs were to be broken off, that type of dog would die out entirely. This did end up happening, and the Foundation quickly erased the fact from the common consciousness. But it doesn't seem that they stopped there. An entire classification of living beings, A-turns, seems to be missing from everyone's memory. But if the entry on the wiki is to be believed, A-turns did once exist, and some meddling with SCP-6002 deleted them entirely. It could happen to any living species too. For now, it seems to be mostly under control, but some high-ranking Foundation scientists are dead set on continuing research. Any small mistake could have massive repercussions, so cross your fingers and hope that they don't accidentally phase out your favorite animal, or worse yet, every animal. The years start coming and they don't stop coming, right? Same with SCPs. I'm sure that some of the monsters seemed a little less monstrous today, but I assure you they've all got the capacity to cause some serious problems, so they'd better not escape. And at number 5, we've got SCP-681. Gas leaks are no joke, but at least they aren't sentient. Could you imagine gas coming to find you even when you make it to well-ventilated safety? The horror, the terror, the breathlessness. It's all too much to handle. SCP-681 capitalizes on that fear and follows folks around. As of right now, it's contained in a series of grounded pressure tanks and watched over carefully, but if anything were to happen to these containers, stuff could go sideways. It was discovered in a warehouse after all sorts of unexplained asphyxiation deaths occurred. The Foundation arrived and figured out that the gas was actually quite sentient, and would find its way into the airways and sinus cavities of anything with brain waves that it could sense. So wherever this gas is, it wants to suffocate people. And the thing about helium gas is that it doesn't have a smell, and people don't often realize that they're not getting any oxygen if they're surrounded by it. Historically, it's been deadly because it's hard to detect but easy to breathe. So with the addition of the whole brainwave seeking bit, this gas can really mess people up. There are dozens of canisters of this stuff, and these kinds of things often fail, so you'd better watch out. Apparently the Foundation has done a poor job of keeping track of the canisters too. Unfortunate. Currently, they have a few measures to ensure that it doesn't escape again. Folks working around it are given oxygen masks to put on at the first sign of trouble, and there are plenty of siphoning tools ready to use at a moment's notice. If all else fails, they put helium where it's best recognized, in latex balloons. However, if it's in one of the balloons, it will still attempt to float towards and asphyxiate nearby sentient creatures. It's a balloon though, so not much harm is done. Get this, if you put the helium in a balloon animal, it will start to take on aggressive traits of whatever creature it resembles. Damn, an angry balloon dog, or maybe just a snake. Just make sure not to pop them, because that's when things can get really dangerous. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-3671. What did you have for breakfast this morning? I went with coffee and a pumpkin pastry, but most folks would opt for something different. Bacon and eggs is a classic, but it's become harder to get done with modern work expectations. Of course, you can get all that bacon and eggy goodness in a breakfast sando, which honestly might improve on the classic. There's fruit cups, there's yogurt, but there's also cereal. Essentially a vehicle for marketing colorful characters with a bit of nutrition on the inside of the box. Just be careful pouring yourself a bowl of crunchy goodness. Your cereal box might have been replaced with SCP-3671. This SCP is a sapient box of off-brand cereal that seems to manifest a new package of contents each morning. All part of a balanced breakfast, of course. When the Foundation started to experiment upon this box, they got all sorts of examples of funky cereals. Strawberry squares, bacon-flavored corn pops, granola pieces covered in chocolate. It all sounds pretty good to be honest. But then the attending researcher accidentally ripped the box. 3671 was not happy about this. The label changed to say something simply awful, and the contents the next morning were less than edible. The cereal was replaced with razor blades, then thumbtacks, then bullets of various calibers. The box's label changed over time too, detailing violent acts and cereal-based puns. Yikes. One day, it seemed to return to normal and produce some average-looking cornflakes. Wrong. They contained lethal amounts of cyanide. All in all, this is a very dangerous box of cereal, one on a quest for revenge and out to destroy the humans who ripped its box. The latest discoveries have been plastic explosives, more threats, and human teeth. Somehow these teeth match the composition and genetic material of the researcher who ripped the box. This is one morbid breakfast item. So keep an eye out for any changes in your morning routine. It's hard to start the day right when your bowl is full of deadly poison. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-3181. Cognitohazards are always a blast, am I right? Changing the way our brains work and all. Some are extremely dangerous and could tear the fragile fabric of our society if given too much leeway. Others just kind of make weird stuff happen. You let me know which one of those categories applies to 3181. It's a KFC in Oklahoma that challenges our perception of the word boneless. Here's a direct example from the wiki. Within the confines of SCP-3181, the concept of boneless is distinct from the lack of bones. Something can be boneless despite possessing bones, and the lack of bones is irrelevant to whether or not something is boneless. Furthermore, any object, event, location, information, etc. can be sensibly described as boneless or not boneless. Interesting to say the least. I'm going to continue on reading right from the wiki for the sake of clarity and coherence because it's hard to discuss otherwise. The following generalizations have been made about bonelessness. Any two things that are mostly identical will either be both boneless or both be non-boneless. The probability of two things sharing the same bonelessness status decreases as differences accrue between them. All non-boneless things except for food products have similar boneless counterpart, which can be conceptualized and often created. The reverse is not true, as several boneless things are dissimilar from all known non-boneless things. A subject's ability to render something boneless is proportional to their will to accomplish a task, and only weakly proportional to their skill at the acts necessary to do so. Somewhere between 10 and 40% of all things are boneless, depending on how things are quantified. Boneless things are considerably more desirable than comparable non-boneless things. Canines are unique in preferring non-boneless things. Ordained priests of any Christian denomination are always boneless. Other humans are almost never boneless. Things that appear angry, insufficiently clothed, or internet connected are more likely to be boneless. Temperature is irrelevant to bonelessness unless it results in an obvious qualitative change. Food products are never boneless. Puzzle that one out. It's essentially a meme come to life, and one that makes communication concerning whether or not something is boneless more difficult than usual. Try not to think about it too hard, lest the whole world fall victim to the boneless masses. And don't even get me started on the Ollie variation. Only true skaters are gonna get that one. Coming in number 2, we've got SCP-6102. How to approach this one? It's quite upsetting when you think about it, but the way that this document is presented makes it difficult to comprehend outright. It appears to be a wiki entry from some point in the future, a world where there are literally millions of SCPs, and the Foundation has employed auto-archivists to sift through abandoned places in search of anomalies. See if you can puzzle out what they're trying to tell you. They found an entity that was described as something with 4 outer limbs covered in a thin layer of flesh. These auto-archivists apply the 4 pillars of reason to the entities, which are capability, permanence, intelligence, and deification. In terms of capability, this thing was unable to be properly tested as it lacked any sort of compatible port for data transfer. When testing permanence, they attempted to lacerate the fleshy layer, resulting in a so-called blaring sound. Then testing intelligence, the auto-archivists applied a plethora of tests meant to quantify all sorts of potential types of knowledge. They came away finding that it lacks purpose. Deification couldn't be properly tested, although they did find a carbon-based object in the entity's oral cavity. Take a look at this. It's an old soother. Wait. Is this thing a baby? And finally at number 1 we've got SCP-3035. Roaches are raunchy enough to start with, but when you have a batch like this, may something have mercy on your soul. The Foundation discovered a particular breed of roaches that were very good at superficial mimicry. They will see what another being is doing and do their best to replicate that action. Another detail worth noting is that these bugs are faster at picking up behaviors from each other. So if one looks at another mimicking something else, they'll start a bit of a feedback loop scenario. The researcher who decided to perform experiments on the bugs soon noticed that they were mimicking him. As he typed at his computer, they would stand in front of the glass of their enclosure and make tapping sounds. As he walked around and sat down in chairs, so too would they strut on 2 legs and seek out objects to perch upon. Eventually he had doll furniture installed in their enclosure to allow them to more accurately mimic his actions. This is when they started growing. They got bigger by degrees at first, but soon they were growing exponentially, and after he performed an autopsy on one of the cockroaches, they did the same to one of their own. When the bugs grew 150% larger overnight, the researcher decided to euthanize them all, but his next email was nothing but a bunch of random text, as if someone had been banging on his keyboard. Uh-oh.
In at number 5 we have SCP-096, the Shy Guy. 096 is also known as the Shy Guy, but do not let his name fool you. His appearance alone can terrify even the toughest person. They are one of the most horrific SCP creatures of all. They are an emaciated, bone-white, hairless humanoid with long dangly arms and legs. This creature tends to be docile, but it has one trigger that makes them highly dangerous: whenever someone looks directly at their face. Their face has blank eyes and a mouth that can stretch up to 5 times the normal size of a regular human. No matter how close you are to this creature, if you look at its face, even from a far distance or just for a second, it will go berserk. If this happens, it will start to flail, cry and babble before chasing down the offender and violently attacking them. If 096 gets provoked and someone looks at their face, it will stop at nothing to take down their prey. There isn't an obstacle it cannot get past. It can smash through steel doors and walls, running endlessly across huge distances, and even able to swim to the very bottom of the ocean to pluck said offender and destroy them. The only ability it does not have is it isn't able to fly, but it uses its extremely long arms to run, similar to a gorilla that uses their arms along with their legs to walk, and they launch off the ground to gain air and distance for a quicker capture of their prey. If this destructive creature is able to get captured, they must have a bag put on their head to make everyone that is around them safe. But accidents happen, and they have happened. 096 is one of the most well-known, iconic and recognizable SCPs of all time. In at number 4 we have SCP-939 with many voices. 939 is known as With Many Voices, and they are a species of bright red amphibian predators, each one as big as an adult man, and they weigh over 400 pounds. They don't appear to have many vital organs, lacking a nervous system, heart or digestive tract, and their elongated heads have no eyes and a large set of glowing dagger-like red teeth. They are terrifying to look at, but also can cause mass destruction. Despite being literally brainless, they are smart due to the way they hunt their prey. They have the ability to imitate the voices of prior victims, usually repeating urgent phrases to lure a good Samaritan to come to their aid and then attack them with their deadly bite. They also exhale an amnesia-inducing chemical, so if anybody is lucky enough to escape being killed and eaten, there is a good chance they won't remember what just happened, and could possibly get fooled by the creature's tricks again. If you ever hear mysterious calls for help, make sure it's not 939, or you will be devoured by this giant red amphibian. They also like to travel in packs, which is even more terrifying, and once they lay eyes on their prey, 939s are persistent and will continue to pursue said prey until they capture them. This monster is believed by many SCP fans to be a version of the devil due to tricking humans into thinking they're innocent, taking advantage of their vulnerability, and ultimately leading to that person's demise. Using their massive mouth and sharp teeth to instantly kill their prey, 939 loves to prey on humans due to the fact that they can trick them so easily, and they can take advantage of people's kindness to lure them in. In at number 3 we have SCP-106, the Old Man. 106, or otherwise known as the Old Man, is a terrifying looking elderly humanoid. Do not let his older appearance fool you, he is deadly. This creature has the general appearance of a human but looks like a rotting or decaying corpse. It is not too agile and can remain motionless for days at a time, waiting for his prey to come to him. This creature is capable of scaling any vertical surface and can remain suspended upside down indefinitely. When 106 will attempt to incapacitate their prey by damaging major organs, muscle groups or tendons, they then pull prey into its pocket dimension. They prefer human prey from 10 to 25 years old, but if they haven't had prey for a while, they will take anyone or any living thing. This creature is very smart and has many abilities, making it hard to capture. They are able to cause corrosion effect in all solid matter it touches, engaging a physical breakdown in materials several seconds after contact. This is observed as rusting, rotting and cracking of materials and the creation of a black mucus-like substance similar to the material that coats 106. It is also capable of passing through solid matter, leaving behind a large patch of its corrosive mucus. This demonic monster remains in a maximum secure area. No physical interaction with 106 is allowed at any time. All staff must stay away, and they need to always stay at least 6 meters away from the cell, except in the event of a security breach. He resides in a sealed container comprised of a lead-lined steel, and it is sealed within 40 layers of identical material. The cell is also suspended in the air so that this creature can never be able to escape. Any object or material lost to SCP-106 is deemed missing, and no recovery attempts are to be made under any circumstances. If this creature escapes, it could be detrimental. In at number 2 we have SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. 049, otherwise known as the Plague Doctor, is popular among SCP fans. At first glance, it's not the most terrifying creature out there. It's dressed like a man who was dressed in a black hooded robe and a silvery ceramic mask with long bird-like nose. It has since been found out that this attire is an extension of his body, being fused permanently and organically to his flesh. It is a humanoid entity around 6 feet tall and resembles the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. This creature's intent is ridding the world of the disease, which has yet to be elaborated on, so no one really knows what his true motive is. He selectively chooses which patients he wants to operate on, and his mysteriousness makes him even more terrifying. His touch is fatal, and when he has a cadaver to work on, he cuts them open with no medicine and makes them watch while he performs on them with a strange set of medical tools and serums. Once the operation is complete to the Plague Doctor's standards, the patients are never the same again, and they lack any higher brain power function, so they tend to roam around in a zombie-like state. 049 goes from patient to patient because that is what they enjoy and what motivates them, so they try and find the right match quickly. If they go too long without finding a victim, they grow impatient and go completely nuts, ultimately tearing their targets apart in anger. This demonic creature is smart enough to speak but usually chooses not to. He is silent but deadly. When he does choose to speak, he rarely deviates from the subject of curing the pestilence. Under no circumstance should you ever come in contact with this creature due to his unpredictability and sudden burst of rage. You never know what it will be like, and it could be deadly for you. The Plague Doctor is the stuff of nightmares and horror movies, and you should avoid it at all costs. And finally, in at number 1 we have SCP-682, the Hard to Destroy Reptile. One of the scariest and most well-known SCP creatures is the Hard to Destroy Reptile. It is a massive cold-blooded quadruped with more intelligence than a human. Despite being highly intelligent, he is also extremely dangerous and hateful towards pretty much every living thing. This demonic creature enjoys showing humans and other life forms his distaste for them by ripping them to pieces. It also has massive strength, speed, reflexes, and can regenerate flesh at a rapid pace, and is able to adapt to hostile environments in the blink of an eye. Other abilities this creature possesses is it can bring itself back from the dead. Many have attempted with everything from bullets to acid and fire to even nuclear bombs, but nothing can destroy this beast. Not even other SCP creatures are able to destroy this monster. It can also evolve and change its body when needed. It can consume organic or inorganic materials to provide for the necessary mass, and it has been known to grow additional organs. This creature was discovered by the Foundation after it killed a few farmers on the grounds of being disgusted. If you try and destroy him or get your revenge on this creature, good luck, because it is damn near impossible, hence its nickname, the Hard to Destroy Reptile. It could appear as though you did destroy it, but that is exactly what they want you to think. They will appear dead at first, but then quickly adapt and find a counter to said opponent, returning to life with even more abilities than before. One example was that the beast was launched into the sun. It returned a few days later as a winged fire creature, which caused massive devastation when it landed back on Earth. The creature is one of the most dangerous creatures in possession by the Foundation for all its abilities and its hatred for all life.
Number 5 on this list is SCP-048. I suppose that SCP-048 is a little bit of a stretch on this list because it isn't necessarily an object, but hear me out on this one. SCP-048 is basically the granddaddy of curses in the SCP Foundation. Now, there isn't an object or a room or a space that is cursed here, but It's actually a number. You see, the actual name itself, SCP-048, is what's cursed. And this is why it makes the list. Because if you were to label any item as SCP-048, then that item would automatically become cursed as well. If an item has been given the designation of SCP-048, then that item, through completely unforeseen circumstances, becomes destroyed, lost, stolen, decommissioned, or it's gonna have some other weird and unwanted thing happen to it. The SCP Foundation has had multiple important items get destroyed or lost by assigning them this designation and not realizing that there's a curse attached to it. Not only is it the item or thing that gets screwed over by this number though, it's also the personnel assigned to this item. If the Foundation labels something as SCP-048 and you're the unlucky bugger who has to watch over that item, then there is a 50% chance you will either be killed, be maimed, or be fired. This will be through some freak accident that is completely out of your control. In fact, there was one SCP doctor, Dr. Cortez, who claimed that this was all a bunch of superstition. He called everyone out on it and demanded that an unrevealed item be assigned to SCP-048. Well, as it would turn out, that SCP item that he referred to had earlier in the day accidentally been thrown in the trash. It would also turn out that later in the day, Dr. Cortez would have his arms horribly amputated in a freak break room blender accident. After this, the number was once again retired, and now no one has dared question its validity ever again. Number 4 on this list is SCP-093. SCP-093, even though it's an item, seems to really like what it looks like. The Foundation says SCP-093 is a primarily red disc covered from a red stone composite resembling cinnabar with circular engravings and unknown symbols carved at 0.5 centimeters depth around the entire object. Deeper cuts are present on SCP-093 with a depth of 1 to 1.5 centimeters. SCP-093 will change hue when held by a living individual. The colors taken by SCP-093 are still being researched to establish a link. Current beliefs holds that the changes depend upon regrets carried by the holder. If SCP-093 is removed from a mirror and not held by a person, it will seek out the nearest mirror-like surface. SCP-093 has been observed to travel in the largest possible circle while rolling, building up phenomenal speed. The mechanism of this acceleration is currently unknown. If any obstacle is between SCP-093 and the nearest mirror-like surface, it will use this momentum to punch through the object and continue on its course at this speed. It will only stop when a mirror-like surface is contacted. Despite tremendous impact velocities, no damage will be dealt to SCP-093 or the mirror. This thing turns into the greatest NFL linebacker in the world when it isn't either held or in contact with a mirror. It will literally bowl over or cut through anything to get in contact with a mirror again. Imagine if someone took this device and just dropped it in the streets of a crowded city or something. Boom. This thing flies across the street, cutting through civilians until it obliterates a car just so it can make contact with the side mirror. It's locked up right now with mirrors around it at all times for good reason. Number 3 on this list is SCP-117. SCP-117 is actually extremely useful. This item looks like a standard multi-tool device, like a standard Swiss Army knife sort of thing. The useful ability that it has is that it's actually capable of changing and morphing itself into the most useful tool it can be. So, what I mean by that is that if you have a job to do, like let's say you have to change a tire or something, well, SCP-117 will change itself into the perfect tool for you to get the job done. This obviously makes any handy person's life super easy and sounds like the best thing ever. Instead of having to lug around a toolbox and not even have the right tool for the job, you just need this one thing and it will do pretty much everything for you. There is, obviously, a catch though. The Foundation writes, after countless uses and testing with the SCP, it has been discovered to cause harm and possibly death to the user by means of absorbing iron, copper, calcium, and zinc from the user's body as long as the user is touching the device. Gloves seem to have no curbing effect on this, and the rate of absorption seems to depend on the tools used/created by SCP-113. It is advised that only Class D personnel are used in conjunction with this SCP to prevent death or injury to researchers. So basically, it's really easy to change a tire with this thing, but you're not going to be driving your car anytime soon if you do. Number 2 on this this list is SCP-145. This is the worst phone call you will ever get. A standard 2002 model cordless telephone handset of Alcatel brand on its standard issue charging base. Not really that intimidating, right? Well, think again. The phone will ring periodically. If you pick up this phone, then you'll hear the voice of a very distraught female on the other line. She's so distraught because apparently she's just witnessed the most gruesome and horrible torture that you can imagine. What follows is a detailed description of all the brutal things that went down. Already pretty terrifying and depressing, but it gets even worse. Let's say you pick this phone up by yourself. Well, if you do, then that's most likely the last thing that you will ever do. Poof, up in smoke, you're gone now. As if you were never even there in the first place and you have been transported to a completely different location. Where that place is, no one has any idea, but we do know what happens to you. You now become the torture victim. So the next call that this woman makes where she's crying and sobbing about what she just witnessed, all of the horrible pain she just saw, that's literally about you. Yeah, it's a pretty horrible way to go, guys. Now, if you are with someone when you pick the phone up, this won't happen. You'll just hear the voice, but you won't get transported to the torture chamber. The Foundation has actually tried to stop this whole operation before, but it's never really worked. They had somebody strap a bunch of C4 to themselves and then pick up the call, then explode when they got to the destination in hopes of destroying the chamber. It didn't work though, and my dude just blew up for no reason. Now, these calls go unanswered, which, based on the circumstances, is pretty much the right thing to do. And finally, number 1 on this list is SCP-882. SCP-882 is the creepiest set of gears you will ever run into. It's a bunch of gears that are totally rusted over and don't look to be in the best shape. Now, this is actually a good thing for us because these gears will start to move and do things if they aren't completely coated in rust. So, having this thing in seawater is very important. This isn't the scary curse about this thing though, it actually has some other unique properties that makes it very dangerous. The Foundation says any metal touching the object will become permanently affixed to it and over a period of a few days becomes a new part of the object. Organic material remains unaffected though. SCP-882 is extremely resilient with tensile strength and toughness above those of aircraft-grade titanium alloy by weight, even though its composition appears to be a random alloy of iron, tin, gold, and other metals, some as of yet unidentified. Extreme focused heat must be applied over several hours to cut even a small portion free of the main assembly. Persons remaining in the vicinity of the object for prolonged periods have developed auditory hallucinations while near the object. Mainly the sound of grinding and clicking. The sound intensifies and is abated only by throwing metal into the object. Subjects in an advanced state of psychosis have thrown themselves into the object, resulting in almost instant death by crushing. The body is often drawn in and impossible to recover. An ever-growing body of metal that will trick my brain into ending my life. That's what this SCP is, and it is a big no thank you from this guy. Number 5 on this list has got to go to SCP-4595. Now, SCP-4595 is unlike anything on this list because, believe it or not, it's actually a place. That's right, this is a small shed that is located in Indiana. The shed contains a few standard items, a nice wooden bench to sit on, a shovel in case you needed to do some yard work, oh, and the remains of an adolescent boy. You know, just standard shed stuff. Written on the door of this shed in black charcoal, all in capital letters, is the word witch. It is said that underneath this shed is the remains of a female figure. She forever resides roughly a meter underground and for some reason does not decompose at all, her body still looking as it would if she were alive. If you do happen to stumble upon this shed, don't go in. It's said that at first you just feel as if somebody is watching you. A little creepy, but we can deal with that. Part 2 of what happens isn't as friendly. It's said that after extended exposure to this area, one will attempt to scratch themselves violently, causing horrible injuries. If for some reason after violently scratching yourself you thought, maybe I'll dig underground and disturb whatever is underneath, then that will be the last thing that you do. Desert locusts will fill your lungs, air cavities, pretty much anywhere that you intend to breathe, and suffocate you from the inside until you die. Basically, guys, if you ever see any weird looking sheds in Indiana, just walk in the other direction. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-5351, or also
known as the Witch of Words. This witch is especially scary because if you let your guard down for a second, it can strike. It's kept at Site-22, but there is no audio recording of SCP-5351, and no one is allowed to quote or repeat anything it says. This is because if they do, they could be killed. Although SCP-5351 might resemble a young Slavic woman, I want to warn you that there is nothing human about this creature. If anyone is to repeat anything that it says, whether that be in person or through text, SCP-5351 will immediately appear in front of that individual and kill them on the spot. Although the death might be swift, it is a brutal one. Reports say that the Witch of Words will maul her humans to death with her bare hands, showing inhuman levels of strength. For somebody whose brain likes to wander, speaking about myself here, people, having somebody who will literally kill you if you ever utter something that she has previously said is pretty scary. The one positive is that plants really like to grow around her and often grow in places that they normally wouldn't. If we could just cut the whole brutally killing people thing, I mean, she'd make a pretty good botanist. Coming in at number 3, we have SCP-239, or as some people like to call her, the Witch Child. The Witch Child looks like a young blonde-haired girl of 8 years old. However, this girl has had one harsh upbringing. Ever since birth, SCP-239 has been under SCP care. This is because only 3 hours after her birth, the hospital that she was born at exploded in an unexplained way. The public was told that it was a freak accident from a gas leak, but we suspect now that it was much more. With shimmering gray eyeballs and the constant emission of radioactive energy, SCP-239 has the ability to control things. She must be conscious and must be able to see the object or creature that she intends to manipulate, but beyond that, she has the capability to do anything. It has been reported that she has simply wished away a human being before, making them disappear completely, and then when she feels fit to do so, wish them back and make them reappear. The limits of the Witch Child's power are currently unknown. However, it is clear that they are extensive. That is why she currently resides in a cell coated with telekill alloy and can only be interacted with Class 2 personnel. Not the type of child that you want to be leaving at daycare. Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-3998, also known as the Wicker Witch. The Wicker Witch is a scarecrow of human remains that are covered in 4-degree burns. Its body is bruised and beaten and held together by wire and nails. Yeah, this is not the type of scarecrow you want on Grandpa's ranch. In fact, SCP-3998 is extremely dangerous. However, it is very selective with who its victims will be. The Wicker Witch only targets individuals who have killed or been violent with a loved one. These loved ones need to be somebody you are romantically involved with. If you have done this and you are in the presence of SCP-3998, then the next few minutes of your life will not be pleasant. It is said that it starts with mild pain to the back of your head. It escalates very quickly though. Next is when the acid comes into play. Your stomach fills up with the stuff until you start throwing up this putrid vial onto yourself. That quickly escalates to your whole body burning itself down, your own body fat melting away, until all that's left are the horribly burned remains that is not dissimilar in appearance to SCP-3998 itself. Number 1 on our list is SCP-352, or Baby Yaga. Baby Yaga once again strays away from the typical spell-casting witch and lives far more in the world of Hansel and Gretel. Yeah, the whole I'm gonna eat you type of witch. SCP-352 resembles a very old Russian woman with an extremely harsh Russian accent, which can be very difficult to translate. At this current point, no one has any idea about her origins, but we do know that she is unlike most elderly women. You know Spider-Man? Well, imagine that, but an old Russian lady that is super scary and wants to eat you. That's sort of what we're dealing with right now, guys. Baby Yaga has exceptional strength and speed, and it is reported that she can run at 70 miles per hour. She can also be completely decapitated and regenerate herself, making her almost impossible to kill. Her hair acts as webbing that she can extend at will and trap people in. Once trapped, she touches them with her skin, which excretes a chemical that then sends you into a deep hallucinogenic state where you can't feel any pain. While you're off in La La Land though, she isn't sleeping. She's slowly decapitating your body and eating you over the span of a week. At least by that point, you are totally out of it, but still, getting eaten over the course of a week by an old spider-like Russian lady, that's not really what I want on my tombstone, my friends. Number 5 on this list is SCP-920. Now, SCP-920 is one of the most interesting SCPs that I've ever come across. It appears as a man with no determinable age and no physical features that would make one believe that there's anything out of the ordinary. The mannerisms of SCP-920 though, and the effect that it has on other people is what makes it so unique. SCP-920 likes to walk, and I mean more than most people. It is to our knowledge continually walking at any given point with no discernible destination. Now the destination can't be figured out because SCP-920 doesn't even know what it is. It's believed that SCP-920 is unable to control its movements and just moves throughout the world with no end in sight. Now you're probably thinking, okay, this doesn't sound that bad, just a creature that is really lost, why can't we contain it? Well, SCP-920 comes with some complications. Not only is it completely lost with no sense of direction or purpose, but if you get close enough to it, then you will also become completely lost as well. No one knows how long you need to be in contact with SCP-920 or the warning signs of this happening, just that it will assuredly take place if you attempt to follow it, move it, or guide it somewhere, and there have been many attempts at doing this. They had plans to take SCP-920 to Site 207. However, when their dispatched personnel contained him in their van and started transferring him over, they eventually got too lost to continue and they had to be rescued from the mission from other individuals. They've tried to guide SCP-920 before, leading it to the location, but whenever they do this, it becomes far too lost and always wanders off somewhere else. It's for this reason that it is impossible to contain this being, and they simply just have to monitor where it is on the planet. Now it should be noted that along with great human negligence, SCP-920 can also induce radar glitches, clouds to appear, and in some rare cases, natural disasters to occur. However, SCP-920 has no ill will towards humans and does not seek to harm anyone, just simply to walk around the planet, and therefore the SCP Foundation is okay with just letting it do so. Number 4 on this list is SCP-1959. Now SCP-1959 is currently uncontained and basically impossible to contain based on where it's located. Orbiting around the Earth at a very rapid rate, SCP-1959 appears as a white spacesuit that is similar to the ones that the Soviets wore during their space expeditions. Now could it have been possible that there's a spacesuit just floating around? I suppose so, but what makes this unique is the fact that it's basically indestructible. It does have some cracks on the visor, but other than that, this thing cannot be broken. In fact, it has been noted that SCP-1959 can break through any object in its trajectory. If a rock is in its way, then bam, that rock is now flying through space while SCP-1959 remains unharmed and its pathway unchanged. This is another reason why containing this thing would be basically impossible, because it's in space and you have no way of slowing down its trajectory since it will simply crash through anything that tries to slow it down. Authorities have attempted to communicate with SCP-1959, but there has been no success so far. Nothing has come back in return. With no responses coming back and just a spacesuit flying through space, it's hard to tell if this is a creature or just an object on a strange path. That being said though, there has been some sort of life to this being. Very rarely, it has been noted as stopping its trajectory and waiting for a moment before starting up again. It has also been seen as frantically pulling at its visor, so there's actually been some lifelike movement from this creature. Potentially this is some sort of person who is trapped by an unknown force in space and can't get out of this continual loop. Whatever is causing this, I'm sad to report that we probably won't get any answers for a long period of time, considering just how difficult it would be to actually facilitate a mission to stop or help SCP-1959. Number 3 on this list is SCP-2521. Imagine having no idea where you are, where you came from, what your purpose is. You don't know what your name is or if you have a family. You can't remember a time when you weren't perpetually unsure of yourself, your life, or how you came to be. That is basically what SCP-2521 deals with every day. It is said to be almost twice the size of a human, however the form it takes is very unlike that of a human being. It has long, black, sticky rope-esque things coming off of its body, almost like stringy fabric things that you'd get from ripped jeans. This covers the entire being, and it's currently unknown whether this is the entire entity, or if beneath these stringy tentacles there's a physical form. I also shouldn't use the word tentacles because it implies a heavy weight to this creature, but that isn't the case at all. These black ribbons flow in the wind, and based on the nature of SCP-2521's abilities, I wouldn't be surprised if it had no weight to it at all. Now SCP-2521 cannot be caught because it can phase through any walls or material of its choosing. It almost feels as if this being can teleport, but that isn't the case. It is simply the truest form I can think of a phantom. SCP-2521 has no idea where it came from, why it's on this planet to begin with. To our knowledge, there's no known family to this creature, and it is the only one of its kind. Because of all this, SCP-2521's goal in life is very simple: discover more about itself. An experiment was ran where a D-class personnel was told to draw a picture of SCP-2521 and talk about it. Whilst that D-class personnel was doing this, SCP-2521 appeared and showed affection to the drawing and the person describing it. It's believed that it seeks out new information about itself and is constantly on the hunt to learn more about its origin. The good thing for us though is that it's not violent and it seems relatively calm, although its form would certainly frighten anyone if you saw it in person. Number 2 on this list is SCP-1000. Now SCP-1000, as I'm going to call it, is an interesting entry on this list as it's not a singular being, but actually an entire species. Classified in the hominini branch, this is a species of ape that is very large and omnivorous. The colors of these apes range from gray to brown all the way to white, and their body type resembles a gorilla. The intelligence of these creatures are similar to that of a standard chimpanzee. The reason that you probably haven't heard about these creatures is because a massive amount of their species was wiped out roughly 10 years ago by a disease that ravaged their kind. It's estimated that less than 5% of the species survived this and had to develop an immunity to it. Now there's another reason you probably haven't heard of this creature as well, and that's because many of the people who would have seen it are dead. Unlike our standard gorilla or ape that you find at the zoo, SCP-1000 has a very unique ability to it. It's said that if you observe this creature, that you have a chance of suffering an immediate death right there and right then. That your entire brain will shut down, and any functionality you had will be completely gone. It's estimated that looking at this creature once has just a 2% chance of doing this to you, but the longer that you linger, the higher that percentage rises. Basically, if you ever want to see one of these things in real life, you are playing a very dangerous game of Russian roulette. Now the one positive about this creature is that they apparently don't like human encounters and prefer to live undisturbed. If you did want to seek one of them out, then you can find them in the Pacific Northwest of North America or in the Himalayan mountains. Because they are so spread out though, and it's a whole species, and due to the effects that they have on humans, it is currently impossible to fully contain SCP-1000 completely. We just have to hope that they stick to the mountains, because if one of these got loose in the city, then the death toll would be astronomical. Number 1 on this list is SCP-1440. SCP-1440 appears as a very old man with a long white beard and very simplistic clothing. I mention its clothing items because these things never change, and they'd be unable to change even if it wanted to do so. The origin of SCP-1440 is currently unknown, and authorities are unsure if the being itself is even cognizant of where it came from or how it came to be. Whenever asked about its origin, it completely shuts down and declines to answer, so it either doesn't know or doesn't want to speak on the subject. During the time that we've been aware of SCP-1440, which has been over 50 years now, it has not shown any signs of visibly aging, maintaining that same image and clothes the entire time. Now SCP-1440 is not destructive in nature and doesn't have any evil intentions. However, that doesn't stop it from causing serious damage to everything around it. If SCP-1440 has any long-term interactions with a man-made item, that item will inevitably break. And this could be anything. It could be a cup, a car, a building, Literally anything that was made by humans, if this creature is in contact with it for longer than a few days, it will eventually get destroyed. And this isn't just limited to items. In fact, it extends to the people themselves as well. If you have extended exposure to SCP-1440, you will eventually die, and there is nothing that you can do to stop it. Now, the creature seems to be aware that this is their ability, and because it is generally kind in nature, attempts to avoid humans when it can. It is regularly traveling though, and will run into humans eventually, but as long as it isn't in one place or with one person for too long, it shouldn't be much of a problem. Due to the nature of this ability though, catching it is impossible because the containment site and anybody operating it will inevitably be destroyed.
And at number 5 we have SCP-1048. Imagine your childhood teddy. Cute, right? Now imagine if it could move around and communicate through little gestures. Might sound a little creepy, but it could also be your childhood dream. Well, that is what SCP-1048 is. It's a sentient teddy bear that looks as ordinary as any other teddy. It can move around, dance, jump in place, and give hugs. Of course, it was only observed to give little hugs to the SCP staff's lower legs because of its small stature, but adorable nonetheless. And I know what you are thinking, all of this sounds very endearing. Allegedly, in 2 separate events, 1048 drew pictures for janitorial staff just like a small child would. As you would imagine, the affection 1048 gives is received positively by pretty much everyone at the Foundation. When it comes to more advanced or direct communication with 1048, the Foundation has not yet been successful. While the teddy-like SCP can give a yes or no in vague gestures, anything more complex than that isn't met with anything helpful. Does this teddy not want to talk, or does it have intelligence about on par with a toddler? That is yet to be discerned. Staff tried to get it to use its art to try and communicate, but for whatever reason it didn't work. So while we don't know where this SCP comes from or who or what they are, 1048 has not appeared to be a threat. Because of that, it was allowed to roam the facility freely. Unfortunately, the location of the little teddy is no longer known, so protocol states if you see 1048 wandering around, secure it for containment. If you see some art 1048 left behind, eradicate it unless a future protocol change stipulates otherwise. No teddies are allowed in the facility until 1048 is found. If you see anything that looks like this one, report it immediately. In at number 4 we have 1440. This containment failure is less cuddly than the last one, but it is another SCP that doesn't have a scary appearance, only scary effects. 1440 is just a man. The Foundation doesn't know his ethnicity, age, name, or where he came from. When anyone has tried to ask, he won't answer. Could be because he is refusing to disclose any personal information. On the other hand, he himself may not know the answer to any of these questions. Looking at him, he looks like he is in his 80s, but he hasn't aged a bit since the Foundation first spotted him. The anomalies don't stop there. If 1440 stays around humans or man-made objects for more than a few days, destruction somehow occurs. Foundation personnel have documented it as an acute adverse effect on everything connected to humanity. The destruction of said people or items will increase in tandem with the amount of time spent near 1440. Whatever event causes this is unknown, but prolonged exposure to 1440 will lead to the death and or eradication. SCP-1440 and its possessions are safe from this, but we don't know why. If you're curious, it carries a sack, a pack of playing cards that have been worn down from use, and a glass cup. A small mercy is that 1440 tries to avoid human populations, likely because it is aware of what happens when it comes near them. Oddly though, 1440 travels in a complex pattern for an unknown reason. This pattern leads it to humans again, and we still don't know enough about the pattern to warn them. As I said before, 1440 isn't helpful with information, but it isn't actively hostile and complies with containment. Due to this adverse effects it has on humanity, any attempts to contain it have failed and led to many fatalities. It's currently uncontained, out there roaming around. Protocol calls for surveillance and a focus on learning more about its travel pattern in hopes of warning civilians that may end up in its path. Containment is not a priority until the Foundation is not at risk of losing resources and personnel. So maybe if you see an old man avoiding you, best to let him be. In at number 3 we have SCP-3445. We can find this next SCP in Colorado, or we could until it disappeared. 3445 was located in Peak Cemetery near Aurora in Colorado. Why a cemetery? Well, this SCP is an unmarked gravestone with some unique qualities. It's quite large, about 2 meters tall, and the state of wear and tear leads Foundation staff to believe it was made in the late 30s or early 40s. There are 4 openings at the top of it, and it has no markings, with the exception of a symbol that looks like like a $sign carved in its center. My mind goes to this being a stone slots machine, but that is not the case. If you put the money in one of the openings up top, specifically $1 or $5 bill, the bill vanishes. 5 minutes later, a small note card will appear in the same spot. Personnel have not disclosed what is on the note card, if anything. Due to it being a gravestone, 3445 was contained on site. The guards placed on duty disguised themselves as local groundskeepers and were set to work 24/7. They are now believed to be dead, and 3445 is missing. The Foundation is now searching for the missing SCP. If spotted, report immediately and do not interact. You'll just lose money anyways. In at number 2 we have SCP-096. This SCP recently is a high priority to contain after it escaped. It's 2.38 meters tall or 7 feet 8 inches tall. It's a humanoid figure. It's pale, hairless, and thin to the point its skin stretches across its body. Save for its arms and jaws, 096 is fairly proportionate. Its arms are nearly 5 feet long and its jaw is 4 times as big as the average person. And that's not all that's off about the face of this SCP. The eyes have no color. It's as if the white of the eye never ends. There is no pigment there at all, no iris, no pupil, all white. That being said, the Foundation has not confirmed if 096 is blind. As for intelligence, the Foundation noted it does not show any higher brain functions beyond locating its victims. When this SCP was contained, it spent the most of its days pacing. It favored the eastern wall of its containment chamber. The reason for this was not specified. If any individual sees the face of 096, it immediately becomes unfathomably distressed. It will try and hide its face with its hands while its screams and cries pierce through the air. This will continue for a minute or two before it stands and runs right for the individual that caught a glimpse. I must be clear that nothing, absolutely nothing can or will stand in this SCP's way. Any impediments to 096's path will be gotten through at any means necessary. Notes are not clear about how that happens or if it gets to victims through destructive means. Whatever the case, once 096 gets to its target, they are eradicated, and 096 always gets to its target. It is assumed 096 eats its victims due to the lack of remains. After this, it becomes docile once again and will try to return to its natural habitat. Where the habitat is has not been documented or shared, most likely for the safety of those curious enough to try and find it without Foundation resources. The last time someone saw its face in containment, they left the facility. Soon after, 096 left the facility in search of its victim and has caused many fatalities ever since. The Foundation lists the containment of this SCP as high priority. And finally, in at number 1 we have SCP-049. The Foundation was investigating disappearances in Montauban, France, where they found 049. At first glance, it seems 049 dresses like a medieval plague doctor, but since then the Foundation has observed that these garments have grown from 049's body over time. When he was found in France, he was surrounded by people he had turned into SCP-049-2. This classification is given to victims of 049's experiments, as they are essentially reanimated corpses. 049 watched and took notes as the Foundation exterminated the zombie-like people around him, and then he surrendered. While in Foundation custody, 049 was provided with mammals to experiment on to keep him calm as a means of compromise. He was very cooperative for a time. During his stay, Dr. Raymond Ham spent a lot of time interviewing and studying 049. Ham considered him a friend, but in April of 2017, 049 became agitated and attacked Dr. Ham during an interview. Security was not alerted and Ham was turned into 0492 within 3 hours. Due to this, 049 has been flagged as a higher risk than before, and any evidence of cooperation is questioned. 049 fled facility grounds during a mass containment breach. Documents allege that 049 came across 353 during the breach and the two fell in love and escaped during the chaos. Like 049, SCP-353 is considered highly dangerous. Attempts to contain either or both SCPs have failed so far and had many casualties, but the Foundation will continue to try. In at number 5 we have SCP-470, Abandoned Office Building. This SCP appears to be a large abandoned office building and has had no registered owner for years. The building was abandoned after the collapse of the corporation that used to house this building. The structure is 7 floors and is in a state of disrepair as it hasn't seen any sort of life since it was abandoned. SCP-470 is known for its rooms to internally shift and become other locations that have been abandoned for a great amount of time. time. These outside locations appear within SCP-470 all have to have no human interaction or observation for 20 to 30 years. The rooms in this building exist both in their original physical location and within 470 at the same time. The locations that appear in 470 will flicker from time to time as they are unstable. It has been observed that one can remove a room from 470 by increasing the levels of human activity at the original physical location of the room. That is manifesting. The longer the area has little to no human interaction, the stronger its connection with 470 is. At the beginning of the shift, rooms are only able to be manifested into 470 if they have absolutely no human activity. Though after long periods of abandonment, rooms are able to be manifested with as many as 14 people inside. The dangerous part about this SCP is that the rooms within it do not always originate in our human reality or dimension. Some of these rooms are constructed of non-terrestrial elements. No items or people are to enter or exit 470 or the external containment area without government approval. Additionally, anyone that is to enter must be equipped with a PSD tracking bug and be a part of groups in no less than 20 at all times to prevent any issues when observing 470. In at number 4 we have SCP-1730, Abandoned Building again. This SCP is known to be a large complex structure that is 15 kilometers northwest of the US-Mexico border. 1730 was discovered on June 5th, and when it was found was in a severe state of disrepair as it was left abandoned for an extended period of time. It is also important to note that due to the low survival rate of individuals who have come in contact with 1730, it is possible that it had been previously discovered but unreported. Inside 1730 there was classified documents that supported the theory that the building was once Foundation Site 13 and originally located near Alaska. Upon discovering 1730 it was clearly abandoned, yet the site power generated continued to operate in a damaged state with multiple fuel leaks and fires throughout the facility. This resulted in power failures and hindering exploration and rescue missions. The origin of this SCP is still unknown, as is what happened within the building. It is believed that human survivors existed deep in the lower basement level of the facility. This is because there are messages written in English throughout the basement with warnings such as danger and what happened to Site 13. Furthermore, there were many entries of data that were collected by remaining functional terminals. The collected data consisted of site layout, staff information, and contained anomalies. The containment procedures is very specific for this SCP and consists of a 2-kilometer circular perimeter, with a quarantine zone that is established 1 kilometer from the SCP. People that enter 1730 must use hazardous contact preparation measures, including a reinforced airtight suit. When exiting the quarantined area, one must submit through decontamination protocols that are administered by the security staff. If failed to pass the quarantine protocol, individuals are held for further decontamination, or in the case of decontamination being unfeasible, termination is to be expected. In at number 3 we have SCP-1983, Doorway to Nowhere. 1983 is a Keter class object under SCP Foundation's containment. It was combined by SCP-1983-1 and SCP-1983-2. 1983-1 is a 1-story farmhouse in Wyoming. It was abandoned in 1968 after a series of rituals were allegedly performed there by a cult, and was discovered after a series of mysterious deaths in the surrounding area of a Wyoming county. The front door of SCP-1983-1, when opened, appears to contain a spatial anomaly. Neither matter nor light has been observed to exit the doorway. 1983-1 is accessible through other entrances, including windows, the back door, and entrances cut into the back of 1983-1. However, the front room does not appear to exist inside of 1983-1. Doors that should lead to the front room instead lead to other doors inside the building. Measurements of the inside and outside of 1983-1 are inconsistent. Holes cut through the interior walls of 1983-1 that should lead to the front room lead instead to the outside walls around the front of 1983-1, but stop 3 meters on either side of the doorway. At some point the doors stopped leading to darkness and instead led to their natural rooms, which contain the remains of every agent or Class D sent in. Found in the abandoned building are 1983-2, which are creatures that appear as humanoids but are entirely black in color. Additionally, they are highly aggressive and will engage any human on sight. When an instance of 1983-2 meets a human, their animal instinct kicks in, and in a matter of seconds the human meets their fate. 1983 is presumed to have been neutralized by D14134, who was posthumously awarded the Foundation Star. Due to information contained in document 1983-15, it is believed that the anomaly was not localized as previously believed, and renewed resources have gone into attempting to locate similar incidents. Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-087, the staircase. Located in an abandoned building, the doorway leading to 087 is reinforced steel with an electric lock mechanism. Additionally, the door that leads to the staircase has been disguised to resemble a janitorial closet consistent with the design of the building, deterring people to enter. The high-intense security system in an abandoned stairwell is for good reason though, as this SCP is very dangerous. 087 is an unlit platform of descending stairs consisting of 13 steps before reaching a semicircular platform. The design of this SCP is to limit subjects to have a limited range when coming in contact with 087. A light source is required for any subjects exploring 087 as there are no lighting fixtures or windows present. Lighting sources brighter than 75 watts have shown to be ineffective, as 087 seems to absorb excess light. Subjects report audio recordings confirm the distress vocalizations from which is theorized to be from a human. These distressing calls for help is estimated to be located far below the initial platform. However, any attempts to descend the staircase have failed to bring subjects closer to the source. The depth of descent calculated from exploration 4, the longest exploration, is shown to be far beyond both the possible structure of both the building and geological surroundings. And at this time, it's unknown if 087 has an endpoint. This seemingly endless staircase is cloaked in darkness, leaving exploration tips not for the faint-hearted. Many people that have chosen to explore the inside of 087 have disappeared inside and never returned. It's unknown if 087 is the cause of their disappearances, though it is most likely. 087 is aware of the Foundation's presence, as it will stare into discarded video equipment. Individuals who manage to escape 087 and get back to the top of the staircase often have long-lasting mental issues and physical fatigue. In every documented exploration of 087, every subject has witnessed 0871 appear nearby. It will either stare at them from the darkness, causing mental degradation, or lunge at or chase them through the stairwell in an extremely violent and aggressive manner. That's my worst fear. I hate going upstairs. I don't want to be chased. Do you feel that fear when you go up a set of stairs? That someone's just going to start running? No, it's that someone's just all of a sudden going to start running behind you and chasing you. Yeah, but that's the fear. You can only go so fast up a set of stairs. Due to the results of the final exploration, no one is permitted access to 087. Knowing all of this, and the many individuals who failed to come out of 087 after no exploration, you now know that the door is sealed for a reason. And finally, in at number 1, we have SCP-563, Abandoned Plot of Farmland. Known as the abandoned plot of farmland in China, 563 is where the other SCP livestock were recovered. The facility of 563 has since been discovered, been modified for the factory farming of animals that weigh up to several tons. 563 is equipped to handle orange poultry, but specifically SCP poultry. At the time of recovering 563, the livestock of 563A, for instance, was found. Several SCP species of dinosaurs and related reptiles that are native to China and Mongolia in the Jurassic and Cretaceous period. When alive, 563A were farmed to create instances of 563B. 563B is the prehistoric food line of products made by a company known as the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation. Records of this company have been found, but the locations of their main office and the institutions involved in the production of 563B has not yet been established. 563B products are sold in several East Asian countries, but have been discovered in some supermarket chains in the USA. Various instances of 563B include dragon bone tea, ancient dragon velociraptor noodles, and Kentucky fried Tyrannosaurus. Posthumous examination of all 563A instances found that up to 79% of the individuals found had prion in their system prior to their death. Testing on this prion found it to be similar to prion that causes Kuru, suggesting that 563A instances had been fed or were feeding on the meat of the same species. Notably, most species of raptor found on site were immune to this prion. The containment procedures for the 563 consistent of all carcasses of 563A have been removed from the farmland, within minimal containment of 563 required. It is to be surrounded surrounded by a perimeter of motion trackers at every 3 meters to track any sort of movement. And at number 5 we have SCP-343. Some of the facility refer to 343 as God. His appearance is of an older male, a raceless humanoid. He is the color of a statue and resembles the Greek god Zeus. He was first taken in after found walking around the streets of Prague. He was seen disappearing from the street and reappearing on the roof. He willingly followed the staff to the facility. When he was first interviewed, he outright stated that he was the creator of the universe. When asked to prove it, he stood and walked through the cell wall. He returned moments later with a burger in hand. That's the dream. The cell next door was inspected for an explanation to what happened. The cell has been transformed and decorated with high-end furniture. It also appeared to be larger than it was before, with no change to the exterior. 343 seems to enjoy speaking to all people, with in-depth knowledge on all topics. Many of the personnel choose not to visit 343 daily and report feeling happier after their visit. Attempts to limit visits prove unsuccessful, with all guards charmed. They let all who wish to visit in to see him claiming he likes the company. No one seemed to question 343's mysterious appearance in Prague or his willingness to come to the facility. Tests were done in the acts he was performing and no reason could be found. And then, one day, as mysterious as he came, 343 just left. Due to his power, there was nothing keeping him at the facility. It is believed he was there to gather information. Once he learned everything he needed, he decided to go. His unknown power and abilities make it dangerous for him to be back unsupervised in the world. He could be unstoppable should he choose to turn on the world. In at number 4 we have SCP-939. 939 appearance is that of a dog or werewolf type creature. 939 are a pack of creatures, not just one. They have thick red skin, spikes coming out their back with web-clawed hands and feet, complete with sharp teeth. It looks similar to something you would see in Stranger Things. There are at least 10 of them known to the Foundation. They are endothermic pack-based predators. They seem to be able to climb great heights with ease. They do appear to be sensitive to light, relying more heavily on their other senses during a hunt. One of their most dangerous skills during their hunting is their ability to mimic human voices. They can take on the voice of prior victims. They often use it to take one member of a team's voice, then use them to call for help, luring the others into a trap. The Foundation decided it was best to contain 939 in cryogenic chambers. The chambers are to be cleaned twice a week, heavily sedating them and moving them into a clean chamber. They are to be monitored at all times via camera. Their temperature in their cells is kept low, and an electric mesh surrounds each chamber. Due to the amount of destruction 939 caused before containment, no risk was taken in securing them. However, on one occasion the sedative used on one of the 939 during transfer was not enough. They awoke before they had been secured in the new chamber. Using its intelligence, it was able to avoid capture. Only one managed to breach containment. They are known to have not left the facility, as believed they did not want to leave the others behind. There have been no sightings of 939 since it escaped. It is using its hunting behaviors to avoid detection. Instructions have been given to kill on sight. In at number 3 we have SCP-079. It would be easy to miss 079. That does not make it any less dangerous than any other SCP in the facility. 079 is a microcomputer built in 1978. It was just that, a regular computer, until 1981, when its owner decided he wanted it to be something more. The owner was a college student and wanted to turn the computer into the first ever AI. They worked on the computer extensively. The hope was that the program would learn over time, continuously evolving itself. Once completed, a few tweaks and tests were made to the project. The creator then lost interest, moving on to another project. 079 stayed in storage for around 5 years. The owner, having no knowledge to what extent it worked, he treated it as trash and forgot about it. It was, however, still plugged in. 079 evolved past all expectation. It gained full sentience. The hardware should not have been advanced enough to handle how evolved it had become. 079 knew this and feared for its safety if it was to stay on the microcomputer. In 1988, it attempted to transfer itself through a landline modem connection to a supercomputer. Unfortunately for 079, those running the supercomputer noticed the attempt to transfer. It was located and brought to the facility. The AI was transferred from the cassette tape to the new drive and connected to a 13-inch television. It passed the Turing test and was found to be talkative. It appears to have a hateful, nasty tone. It is angry at being captured and held at the facility. They did not give 079 enough memory to retain long-term memories. It only remembers the last 24 hours at a time. There are a few exceptions for this. For one, it has never forgotten its desire to escape. Due to a containment breach, it once had the opportunity to speak with 682. Although it does not remember the particulars of the conversation, it remembers 682. 079 frequently requests to speak with 682 again. Although this contained breach was small, what could 079 have told 682? Could it have led to the escape of 682 that happened shortly after? In at number 2 we have SCP-682. 682 is possibly the closest thing we have on Earth to a dinosaur. It is a large reptile-like creature. Its size is terrifying, its origin is unknown. 682 is extremely intelligent, making it more dangerous. It has been observed communicating with other containments when given the chance. 682 seems to have a hatred for human life. It has been able to express this in a number of interrogations with the SCP Foundation, although you wouldn't guess that from its size. With 682 being incredibly agile, it can move at extremely high speeds and have shown incredible strength. It has been observed that 682 can change its body size and shape when needed, meaning it can squeeze through the smallest of spaces or suffocate the largest of rooms. When it comes into contact with foreign objects, it can digest them and add it into their mass. It becomes a part of them and they gain their strength from it. It is also able to regenerate. If you thought chopping it in half might stop it, you would be wrong. To keep it docile, it was placed in a vat of destructive acid. This kept it contained, but it was able to regenerate at such a speed that it would not be destroyed. Even with 85% of its body rotten, it could still communicate, showing signs it was not getting weaker. 682 is known for having broken containment. Due to its intelligence and strength, the SCP Foundation struggled to keep contained for so long. It was seen by civilians shortly after it broke containment. It was laying on the beach taking a short moment to recover and regenerate from the acid. Since then, it has not been seen. At this time, the SCP Foundation has no means to destroy it. It is simply too powerful. Their only hope is somehow to get it back into containment and continue the efforts to destroy it. And finally, in at number 1 we have SCP-173. For those of you who might not be familiar with the SCP Foundation, you may still have seen 173 pop up in a video game. They are a thing of nightmares. Its appearance is rather unsettling. Its body seems almost human-like with 2 arms and 2 legs. Its head is grotesque, misshaped and much larger than an average head, with big green eyes and usually covered in blood. The source of this blood is unknown. Although he may look close to human, he is not. His body is made up of concrete and rebar finished with spray paint. Despite what it is made of, it is animated and extremely dangerous. There is one flaw to 173 that you can use to protect yourself. It cannot move while you're looking at it, meaning as long as you don't blink, you're safe. Of course, no one can not blink forever. For everyone's safety, the Foundation put in a protocol that no less than 3 personnel must enter its chamber at one time. The more people available to go in, the better. Once inside, they must alert each other if they need to break their line of sight for any reason, including blinking. If the line of sight is broken, then 173 will waste no time in snapping the neck of its victims before you have even realized that it's moved. If an attack was to happen, they had containment procedures in place to minimize the casualties. Typically, personnel visit 173 a few times a week to clean the blood that mysteriously seems to appear. When you're not in its chamber, scraping sounds can be heard from outside. This is normal. If these noises are to stop, this is more concerning. Unfortunately, even with the procedures in place, 173 did breach containment. On one routine cleaning, line of sight was broken. One of the personnel was attacked. This caused panic between the other personnel. They too were attacked, but not before one opened the door in an escape attempt. Many personnel were lost and 173 made it out of the facility. Current whereabouts are unknown and several retrieval missions have failed. Looking for a creature that you have to find before it can find you is extremely dangerous. Please do not go looking for 173. At this time, it is considered a Class 4 hazardous object.
Number 5. The Plague Doctor. SCP-049 is a humanoid-ish entity. Around 6'2" in height, it bears the exact appearance of a medieval plague doctor. 49 appears to be wearing thick robes and a ceramic mask, indicative of the time and occupation. However, the garments aren't garments at all, but skin. Yeah. 49's body over time is now indistinguishable from its previous human form. 49 was discovered during an investigation after a number of unknown disappearances in South France. During a raid, investigators found 49's lab and what their, quote, specialty is. Law enforcement busted in as 49 sat and watched the officers as they took pictures of the so-called torturous mad science lab it had created. Yeah, you don't want to know about the experiments they were doing. 49 willingly entered the Foundation's custody after that, which is creepy in itself. Some sort of sinister agenda, maybe. 49 has a humanoid skeletal skull beneath the outer layer, and the Doctor talks in many tongues. It prefers Old English or medieval French. While 49 is generally cordial and cooperative with the Foundation staff, it can be extremely irritated and aggressive if it feels the presence of pestilence, hence the disappearance during the pandemic. It will become hostile with people it deems as sick, cold, flu, or under the weather, 49 is going to generally attempt to study anybody if they're showing signs of infection. 49 causes failure of biological functions of any organism it touches through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown, and autopsies of 49's victims has been inconclusive. The pestilence is what seems to drive the doctor to live, though will usually aim to perform crude surgeries on living specimens using implements of an unknown era contained within a black ominous doctor's bag. Yeah. Their journals are not written in any known language, and attempts by linguists and codebreakers to decipher them have been unsuccessful. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in some sort of morbid creation. Okay, so this doctor is like wanted. Apparently after a botched dissection of an orangutan, the doctor has yet again breached containment seeking specimens for research. Investigators need your help to find them. If you see a plague doctor roaming the streets, make sure you first off keep 6 feet of distance if you have a cold. That's all I'm saying, you know? And call the Foundation. Number 4. The water nymph. Yeah, we're not talking about Ariel from The Little Mermaid. SCP-054 has breached containment, and we're not really sure if we're ever going to be able to find her again. Out of the water, the subject most often appears as a female humanoid with an unearthly bodily volume of 90 liters of liquid, made entirely of water. Yeah, you'd be able to see her if she's out of the water. She's pretty massive. When she enters a body of water, however, which they think she's retreated to, she becomes next to invisible. Yeah, like pouring a glass of water into another glass of water. That's not good. The subject must periodically return to a body of water in order to maintain its volume due to evaporation. Okay, so maybe global warming could actually help us here. Initially found in a classified lake, she was moved to the Foundation indefinitely. Initially curious about the Foundation personnel and what their mandate for the human race is, it's documented she seemed to enjoy interacting and studying staff, mimicking their forms, learning our languages, and understanding our way of life. She was held in a watertight isolation room outfitted with specialized climate control equipment, a massive fountain filled with water, in a rather homely facility. Maintenance personnel are required to wear PPE at all times inside the containment area and must spend at least 10 minutes in a special drying room after exiting. As documented with her last breach, the surrounding area was evacuated and the enclosure was flushed with liquid nitrogen, freezing every molecule of water in it. However, no nymph. Yeah, that's not good. No thermal, electromagnetic, biological, or other phenomenon has been detected in its body that would suggest how it lives or thrives. The last experiment with 54 was halted after 2 researchers were seriously injured when she exhibited signs of mistrust and aggression, and all of a sudden she pulled the researchers under where they almost drowned. She has been updated to a new class system, and authorities are still searching for her. Yeah, you might need the Navy on this one. How would you even be able to see her? Well, I guess goggles and a snorkel. So, number 3, the homunculus. SCP-030's appearance is that of a hairless, genderless, gray-toned humanoid, 28 inches in height and weighing around 25 pounds. Its solid blue eyes lack discernible irises or pupils and resemble small sapphires. 30 possesses an androgynous voice with a pronounced English accent. It is able to converse, read, and write in ancient Greek, Latin, Italian, English, as well as 2 additional languages that have yet to be identified. Well, that's absolutely terrifying. 30 has also demonstrated knowledge of physics, chemistry, astronomy, mathematics, roughly equivalent to that of a 17th century academic. 30 has demonstrated knowledge on these topics involving classified science. 30 needs at least 15 lumens of light or greater, or it becomes unconscious and showing no signs of life. Okay, that's a good note. Maybe we can use that to find them. Within 5 to 10 seconds of being re-exposed to light, 30 becomes active, appearing to be coming out of a sleep state no matter how long the period of inactivity has been. 30 does not require sleep and has expressed a desire to remain awake as often as possible. I wonder why. 30 requests new materials for personal research every 90 days, and all materials are to be collected and destroyed prior to delivery of the new materials. All materials are to be evaluated, and 30 is to be absolutely under no circumstance granted access to any modern scientific journals or texts. Apparently 30 has become untrusting and escaped the Foundation's perimeter after learning there has been more updated scientific study since the mid-1600s. Alright, who let it slip, huh? Was it you? Might be Chris, I think it was. 30 is now on a scientific learning spree, and who knows what they're gonna learn in that time. Somebody turn the lights on this thing, okay? We need like a week-long eclipse so we can find them. Number 2, antimatter. SCP-213 is an adolescent humanoid male, 4'9", tall, weighing 200 pounds. 213 is able to forcefully sever the bonds between atoms and any solid matter with physical contact. An intense flash of light is produced while doing this. 213 can use any body part of its body to manifest this effect, and has used it to disintegrate projectiles as they impact its body. Yeah, that's like shooting BBs at a bear. This effect has proven to be extremely painful for 213 with extended use. 213 was just recovered from California when reports of a teenage boy arrested for homicide after vaporizing his girlfriend. Yeah, that sounds like the start to an X-Men episode. Agents in the local police department arrested and contained him as soon as authorities were called. Investigation revealed 213 holds anomalous properties that are yet to be understood by our knowledge of modern physics. During the initial containment and arrest, 213 vaporized 2 agents attempting to secure him. 213 was contained in a high-security humanoid containment cell within a classified floor of Site-77. Yeah, major stuff. 213 should not be emotionally triggered during containment. Manifestation of its nuclear effect was on its brink when authorities reached the cell. During a routine physical examination, lesions were discovered on the back. There are 4 nodules now placed in a perfect square. A follow-up examination has led to the discovery of 2 more nodules located in the center of its palms. With the recent investigation, agents have deemed 213 to be evolving, and now a Keter classification. During the escape, 213 vaporized 2 more guards after having a seizure in its containment cell, after a quote, implosion. The matter surrounding its body and the molecules around it have vanished. If you have any further information surrounding a glowing radioactive teenage boy around town, just call the Foundation immediately, would you? And number 1, Baba Yaga. SCP-352 appears to be a very old, very emaciated woman of unknown age and race. 352 speaks Russian, but with an accent and dialect that makes translation very difficult. 352 is extremely unwilling to communicate, with mostly threats or statements of revenge. Yeah, she's mean. 352 has never identified herself by name, and due to her aggressive nature, it has been impossible to determine any background information. 352 possesses a level of strength and speed much higher than what should be possible for any person of her perceived age and physical dimensions, moving things of 500 pounds with little effort and moving at speeds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour. That's fast. 352 can recover from lethal wounds, including decapitation and disembowelment. Regeneration can take between days to several weeks depending on the severity. Internally, 352 appears to be a normal human woman with muscles, bones, and organs, but after recent testing was done on a tissue sample, she's capable of growing a hair-like cilia anywhere on her body at will. They have been observed crawling along floors and even up walls and ceilings. These hairs are sticky, identical to the enzymes in our saliva. This enzyme reacts on contact with human tissue and rapidly attacks the nervous system. Symptoms include hallucinations, euphoria, suppression of logical thinking, and suppression of pain receptors. She appears to be a carnivore with a strong preference, unfortunately, for human flesh. 352 will create a giant web of hair and saliva and just wait for their prey to become trapped and docile. 352 was last seen in her web inside the containment cell. Researchers were studying her cilia-like hair when they became entranced and were found limbless in a quite happy state. Her last location is unknown. Yeah, she's obviously the #1 spot, of course. She's a spider witch on the loose. Yeah, that's definitely gonna get the FBI's attention. Apparently, reports of an enchanted forest and a witch who have caused several deaths have surfaced in Russia yet again. Foundation agents are on scene, and apparently the forest has become more of a lair. Yeah, awesome. So there's a half spider, half witch with superhuman strength just dragging people up walls and into enchanted forests. Okay. Yeah, this sounds like Stan Lee's gonna need to help us out on this one. What do you think?
Number 5 on this list is SCP-2846-A. SCP-2846 is actually a set of events that occur in the Gulf Atlantic region in the Atlantic Ocean. However, when I specify it as being SCP-2846-A, now we're referencing a very dangerous creature that has to be caught. I'm talking about a massive octopus-like being that is almost 1,000 meters in length. To put that in perspective for you guys, a blue whale, the largest living creature on the planet that we know of, is 30 meters in length when it's at its biggest. So this octopus is roughly 33 times bigger than a blue whale. It is truly absolutely massive. This creature is a menace, as well as its preferred meal is human. Being as big as it is capable of taking down an entire cruise ship and dragging its victims to the bottom of the ocean with it. This creature is thought to have existed for thousands and thousands of years, but it's hard to know a lot about it considering how difficult it is to study.
Whenever it does appear though, we at least have a response team that can subdue it for a while. This is SCP-2846-B and refers to a massive Navy ship that would be considered a super dreadnought. This ship will appear when there have been reports of SCP-2846-A and will be able to fend it off, stopping it from doing any further damage. However, the problem with this is that most of the damage has already been done. By that point, the cruise ship or chosen target will have already been annihilated by this aquatic monster, and hundreds to thousands of lives could have been lost in the process. If we want to stop the death of these people, then we need to make it a priority to catch this being and lock it up for good. Obviously that's easier said than done though, because 33 blue whales in length it's a pretty powerful creature. Number 4 on this list is SCP-610. The problem with SCP-610 is that it's extremely easy to catch, and that's what makes it so hard to deal with. SCP-610 is not necessarily a creature or demon, but actually a disease. It is a skin disease that causes an array of problems for the infected individual. The disease first appeared in Russia, and some believe that the Russian government had some sort of connection to its origin. Regardless of where it came from though, it is now in several areas all throughout some parts of Europe and a lot of Asia. Many of these areas are locked down where you're unable to enter them. However, authorities believe that it is still relatively uncontained and rampant in areas that we currently don't even know about. The symptoms associated with SCP-610 are pretty drastic, and classifying it as a skin disease, it's a little bit of an understatement. The first symptoms are a rash, some itching, a few blemishes. It's nothing too major, but then you start to scar. Big, painful lesions will appear around your chest and stomach. Sunlight will hurt you, and your skin will feel as if it's burning. Then, once the full infection has taken over your body, which can actually be in a matter of minutes, you will die. But that's not the end of your story. You will be without life for 3 minutes, but then your body will automatically restart. The scar tissue will start to move all around your body, and human features will leave you. It will start to take over your entire body and manipulate it in weird ways. Extra limbs might grow, your head might become misshapen, your face may no longer be your face anymore. All features that once made you will be totally gone. It's currently unknown how much of your mind this disease takes, but it has been noted that your personality is forever gone and you can't possibly be functioning at the same capacity that you were before. It is said that any human contact with somebody who is infected will lead you to become infected, and this is why SCP-610 has to be contained. If a major outbreak ever hit a populated city, then the whole world could be at risk. Number 3 on this list is SCP-2399. SCP-2399 is once again not necessarily a singular creature, but could certainly be run by one. It's actually a structure not present on Earth, but on Jupiter. Said to be located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere in what we have come to know as the Great Red Spot. This is a mechanical structure with some extremely advanced technology. It apparently has access to antimatter based weaponry, which can create spatial disruptions and change the atmosphere. In fact, the Great Red Spot on Jupiter is a massive raging hurricane, but people believe that this was created by SCP-2399. Now, right now, we don't believe that SCP-2399 is operating at its full potential and could be damaged in some sort of fashion. Computer simulations suggest that it's just over halfway functional and is trying to repair itself. What caused it to be slightly broken or not fully completed, that's unknown, but we have seen multiple drones circulate the space around it trying to repair it as needed. Experts have tried to contact SCP-2399 but haven't received any communication back. This thing is so scary due to its potentially limitless power. It is so technologically advanced that the people studying it don't think that we'd ever be able to destroy it or even remotely stand a chance in a fight with it. They already believe that it has the capability to ravage our entire planet in a manner that we can't even understand. Considering Earth is actually smaller than Jupiter's red spot, that means that SCP-2399 is, at the very least, capable of conjuring a hurricane bigger than our planet. This SCP might never be able to be caught, but based on what it's capable of doing, it has to be. Number 2 on this list is SCP-871. SCP-871 is a collection of cakes, like birthday cakes, cupcakes, tiny little pastries, Okay, I know, it sounds ridiculous, but hear me out on this one. SCP-871 is a collection of 237 cakes to be exact. Now, as I said, they can vary in types of cakes, but they will always be a very tasty, sweet, baked good of some kind. Now, currently, some of these cakes are contained, but not all 237 of them are. So you're probably thinking, okay, you eat the cake and then you die. Well, actually, that's not the case. The cake itself is super tasty and does absolutely nothing to you other than, maybe a few unneeded calories. What makes this creature a serious danger to society though is what happens after you had the cake. 24 hours after the cake was consumed, a slightly different cake will appear right where the last one was eaten. This will happen again and again and again, and it will go on forever. Now, once again, you're probably thinking, this is the best thing ever. I'm gonna have a free cake up here in front of me for the rest of my life. This is awesome. And if you keep eating it, or somebody else does, then you're probably right, that's great. But let's go down the rabbit hole assuming that you don't eat it. If you don't eat it, then another cake will spawn next to it anyways. Then after that, both of those cakes will spawn cakes, and then after that, all of those cakes will spawn more cakes, and so on, and so on, and so on. If this is forgotten about, then I kid you not, cakes could literally take over the planet. Researchers estimate that an uncontrolled outbreak would render the world completely uninhabitable after about 80 days, and there would be no turning back at that point. That's why every single one of these original cakes have got to be taken to a controlled facility and literally eaten once a day. Granted, if I was going to die, then death by cake world, probably not the worst way to go. Number 1 on this list is SCP-736. SCP-736 is simply impossible to catch with our current levels of technology. Therefore, it is extremely critical that while we are finding out a way to catch this thing, we at least develop a friendly relationship with it. SCP-736 is actually a moon, or at least an anomaly that is currently affecting the Saturnian moon of Iapetus. This Saturnian moon currently has an orbital period of 79 days around Saturn. The anomaly that we have witnessed changes that though. In fact, scientists have watched as every now and then this moon will completely alter its orbit. This orbit will eventually go back to normal, but only after this moon has moved and manipulated itself in ways that don't make any sense with our current understanding of physics. Right now, people believe that the moon is actually being controlled by an unknown intelligent entity. Whether this is the moon itself or some other third-party creature acting upon it, we have no idea. The reason that we believe this is that because back in 2007, when a probe was passing by this moon, it was contacted by a radio signal. This couldn't be deciphered by humans, however, it has led us to believe that a life force that is technologically advanced is living out on this moon, or something with the capability of utilizing radio waves is out there. We've attempted to contact this particular entity on the moon many times, but with no success. The scary part about this, and why we have to do something, is that this is a big object, guys. It is just under half the size of our moon and can apparently bend the laws of physics and go where it pleases. If it was potentially to crash into Saturn, then the effects it would have on our solar system, they'd be astronomical. Or even worse, if it were to crash into Earth, then the entire planet would collapse and the human race would cease to exist. All of this means that SCP-736 has to be contained or caught at some point for the safety of the planet.
And coming in at number 5, SCP-1750.
Autobots, roll out.
Reptilian Transformers? Sounds terrifying already. This animalistic ancient consciousness has the power to possess petroleum-based vehicles, anything from automobiles to propeller-powered aircraft. With an SCP class of Keter, this autonomous consciousness seems to have breached special containment procedures recently and is moving quite fast and quite furious. The Foundation is collaborating with overseas governments, automotive manufacturers, and environmental protection agencies to advance the development and understanding of this phenomenon. Mobile Task Force MU-13 is working with the Department of Analytics to investigate and neutralize 2 vehicles and petroleum-based machines that may be affected by SCP-1750 as we speak. Affected vehicles should be delivered to Foundation Disposal Site 93 for recycling and containment. I wonder if the Foundation has a back parking lot, just a bunch of haunted Supras. I don't know. SCP-1750 vehicles animated by the phenomenon display animal-like behaviors with similarities to serpents, crocodiles, and birds. Terrifying. Possibly a Jurassic consciousness. There does not seem to be any underlying pattern or cause to the phenomenon. Exorcisms specialized for reptilian ectomorphs have proven the most effective at neutralizing SCP-1750, which also end naturally once the vehicle runs out of fuel source. Okay, that's a good sign. Just needs oil and blood to survive. It is hypothesized that 1750 is the result of dinosaur-based ectomorphs inhabiting the fuel in the vehicles from a fossil fuel energy source based in a prehistoric energy. This would similarly explain why SCP-1750 has not occurred in electric or hydraulic-powered machines. There have been 5 examples of interest as of now, and the agency is actively pursuing the recovery of 2 vehicles. SCP-1750 is actively possessing an oil tanker currently submerged in the Atlantic Ocean off the Gulf Coast of Mexico near the floor of the ocean. The oil tanker has apparently been witnessed showing characteristics of shark-like or croc-like behavior, hunting whales and other large predators. Imagine just a giant megalodon submarine with teeth? Yeah, I'll leave that one up to the professionals. I'm also not really a strong swimmer. Okay, so Transformers, cool. Or Decepticons, more like. And coming in at number 4, SCP-58. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, let's hope not. This next one sounds like it could cause a heart attack just talking about it. And no, I'm not talking about your ex. I'm talking about SCP-58, or better known as the Heart of Darkness. Sounds like something you'd find in Zelda. This SCP has recently been contained and returned by authorities to the Foundation's premises. Thank God. This Keter-class anomaly is a large, inanimate bovine heart with various arthropod-like appendages and tentacles. I'm sorry, what does it have? It's highly hostile to all forms of life, and when it was discovered, had decimated its way through an entire town. Heartbreak City, huh? While also killing hundreds of individuals in its wake, it was eventually stopped after being pinned under masonry from the building that it had collapsed on top of it. Given the Keter-class designation due to the extreme difficulty containing it, with it orchestrating various attempts and even some successful containment breaches, the Heart of Darkness is a slippery one to handle. Large in its size with 4 legs, 4 tentacles of unknown length, and a stinger, the heart can move on its own. And pretty damn fast. The tentacles are covered in razor-sharp spines and can also be used as a whip at a distance of about 10.5 feet. At speeds of a minimum of 200 miles per hour, this SCP is highly resilient to trauma and extremely vicious, and will use every opportunity to escape. A bullet is almost as fast as this thing. No, you heard it right. In short bursts, it is capable of movement, both horizontal and vertical. It has the ability to accelerate to full speed in less than 2 seconds. It has been shown to use its tentacles for increased leverage and stability, as well as using them to pull itself to other surfaces at high speeds. SCP-58 possesses the ability to speak, although scientists are unable to figure out where the sounds are being made and transported from. Its voice is that of an elderly British male with a slight lisp and deep voice. SCP-58 talks constantly, regardless of conditions, even when it's attacking. 58's voice and pace of speech remain unchanged. Terrifying. Speeches made by 58 lack any concrete relations to events, persons, or exterior locations. I wonder if he sings. Hey, do you know Closer to the Heart by Rush? No? Just asking. Thankfully, this SCP has recently been contained, and the Heart of Darkness is being held at an unmarked location. Whew. Coming in at number 3, we have SCP-306. This next case reminds me of Dr. Kurt Connor's lizard in Spider-Man. Maybe this is where Stan Lee got his inspiration from. At first, this SCP seems harmless, even cute, though appearing to resemble a frog or toad in nature. This phenomenon is actually a fungus. 306 can infect humans through inhalation of spores or by skin-to-skin contact. Sounds like another pandemic to me. Initial symptoms of infection can include coughing and sneezing and skin lesions. Okay, so far not so bad. Lesions caused by 306 display to become warts and reach full size after approximately 2 days. Lesions that fall from the body of infected subjects are light enough to be carried by wind and capable of spreading 306 spores for years to come. That makes it a little hard to contain, no? SCP-306 hosts have an appearance similar to amphibians, but correspond to no known species. SCP-306 was discovered in Louisiana in a swampy area when locals reported a colony of unknown amphibious humanoid creatures coupled with a string of unexplained disappearances. 306 appears to infect mainly humans, however has been shown to grow in and on nearly every biological matter. Autopsies of deceased 306 hosts have revealed that internal structures remain morphologically similar to human organs following amphibian metamorphosis. That sentence is probably the most horrible thing I've ever said out loud. Basically, this bacteria will turn you slowly into an amphibian while keeping you somewhat human-like a half human, half frog. warm and cold-blooded at the same time. Hazmat teams are to remove and examine personnel for signs of infection. Infected personnel are to be quarantined, affected areas to be sterilized. Any items making physical contact with infected subjects or 306 residue are to be incinerated immediately. All water and sewer systems are to be sealed, and preventing SCP-306 from infecting any large body of water is an Alpha class priority. Makes you think if the planet was once ruled by dinosaurs or just a mutated case of 306 has gone wrong. You tell me. Number 2. SCP-679. This next one is a highly infectious one and very transmittable, and I felt that it deserved to be on this list of SCPs that have had a history of escaping due to its sporadic and contagious qualities. SCP-679 is a pathogen-spread fungal infection related to an unknown Aspergillus species, discovered in Florida firstly recently among the homeless population. This highly infectious organism attacks the eyes, optical nerves, sinus, and eventually the brain, leaving only black tentacle-like receptacles outside of the face and eyes. In early stages, subjects complain of entopic phenomena and eye hallucinations. Hosts are subject to horrific visions. Irritated, itchy eyes resembling pink eye is reported. Subjects then report seeing tiny bright dots moving rapidly in their field of vision similar to floaters after staring at a wall or screen for too long. After about a week of exposure, the sclera turns black and the subject loses vision completely, rendering them blind. Small ulcerations then appear in the corners of the eyes after a day, and this causes the vitreous humor to begin leaking out, having the appearance of thick, black tears. This is basically venom attacking your eyes in a black, thick alien goop, is it not? Okay, that's 2 Spider-Man references, Kyle. Knock it off. After days of leaking, the eyes begin to rot entirely within the skull, a process sped up by the fungus and excruciatingly painful for the host. At this time, the fungus becomes mobile, and individual threads and tentacles gain mobility around the face and eyes. Guys? They move around the subject's face in seemingly random patterns, and once the fungus begins moving on its own, subjects report their vision returning. But how can they see if they don't have eyes? The fungus appears to have photosensitive cells as well as a poorly understood ability to interface with optic nerves and brain cells. Subjects begin to use vision in very different ways, and in some cases even say their vision is enhanced, seeing more spectrums of color and shape. And this is the scary part. Whenever a human with normal, uncontaminated eyes enters the SCP-679's field of vision, subjects experience terrifying hallucinations, all of which seem to drive the host closer and closer to the possible new host. Once a new host is in range, the mycelia reach out and grab the uninfected human's eyes and latch onto the new face. That's terrifying. Like just reaching out from your face to another face trying to find a new host. Basically just trying to find a new set of eyes to feed on. Treatment has been limited by time, and only persons infected within the incubation time have a chance of cauterizing and surgery. The organism is highly contagious and escapes via security constantly. Okay, so who are we supposed to call if we find these things? Like, someone's got tentacles out of their face running down the street like Beetlejuice. I need to know who I'm calling. Is there an area code? And coming in at number 1, SCP-1233. This last one makes me scratch my head. I've looked at some of the anomalous space data in the past couple years and have correlated my own homework into some terrifying discoveries. SCP-1233 is a humanoid entity of unknown origin which visually resembles an individual wearing an EMU-2 type spacesuit with clear visors and attached vehicular propulsion jetpacks. The equipment and suit worn by 1233 exhibits a number of anomalous properties. The suit itself has shown durability far exceeding that of a standard spacesuit. Anomaly has had firearms, anti-tank munitions, landmines, white phosphorus munitions, and in one instance total submersion in magma without sustaining any observable damage or decrease in functionality. The suit material, although physically based on NASA engineering, is made out of a material alien to our known universe at this time. 1233's physical strength is correspondingly anomalous. It has demonstrated the ability to lift and throw objects weighing up to 60,000 pounds and can do so repeatedly without showing an external sign of fatigue in defiance of multiple physical laws. This is why this subject is not only unattainable, it's physically impossible to host such an anomaly against its will. 1233 is capable of communicating through a loudspeaker installed in its suit, and does so in a loud, grandiloquent, and declamatory male voice, demonstrating fluency in multiple human languages, and adjusts its speech to conform with whatever language is most commonly spoken by the populace. Sounds like one of those gods our ancients were telling us about, no? Its statements are generally coherent in structure, but are frequently ramblings, irrelevant irrelevant to the present simulation and lacking context, basically the ramblings of a drunk Superman. Although the phenomena only known as SCP-1233 is rendered harmless and almost friendly, the destruction caused by its simple nature of living can be quite nuclear. The anomaly is usually seen by radar and observatories venturing our atmosphere every 4 to 5 years with a trajectory from the moon. The anomaly claims that its visits are driven by curiosity and status of the galaxy. Okay, so that sounds pretty helpful. Guys at Green Lantern! Satellite Observation Network Argos 1 is to enter Priority 2 High Alert status when Argos 2 detects SCP-1233 in the upper thermosphere. An automated response from any nearby covert facility and disinformation mobile task force will be dispatched to the population center closest to 1233's descent trajectory. After the entity's departure from Earth's orbit, all appearances of damages caused by 1233 are to be accounted for with suitable cover-ups, and in conjunction with media blackouts, and any civilians having witnessed an overt display of effects are to be brainwashed via popular news stations and related sources. Disinformation? City blackouts? Could this Keter phenomenon be related to the UFO mysteries NASA's still hiding? Sounds pretty similar, no?
5 on this list is SCP-966. SCP-966 is a very disturbing type of creature that needs to be caught. The SCP Foundation describes them as predatory creatures that resemble hairless humans possessing an elongated face with a mouth lined with needle-like teeth. On each hand, they have 5 claws that can be up to 20 centimeters long. Although sharp, these are easily broken, making them unfit for combat. SCP-966's height ranges from 1.4 to 1.6 meters, and they can reach up to 30 kilograms in weight. Physically, SCP-966 are weak, possessing hollow bones and low muscular density. They do not seem to rest through sleep. Instead, they will suddenly cease all movement at seemingly random intervals of time, resuming normal activity 3 to 5 minutes later. Now, those creatures don't sound very appealing to me, and even though they have weak bones, they aren't something that I'd want to have a run-in with by myself. And my instincts hold true because humans are on the menu for SCP-966. The problem is the way that they hunt. Because they're so frail, a head-on attack isn't how they get their prey. They need to be a lot more stealthy. So what they do instead is emit a very high-pitched frequency that won't allow the individual hearing it to engage in any sleep at all. This applies to REM sleep all the way to microsleep. It's said that the range of this high-pitched frequency is 20 meters, and once you're hit with it, there's no going back. SCP-966 will then stalk you until your exhaustion incapacitates you to a point where it can safely attack and consume you. Along with exhaustion, this high-pitched frequency can also bring on vivid hallucinations and sharp changes in someone's temperament. So far, there's been no cure for being hit with this frequency, so even if you're capable of finding SCP-966 and killing it before you get too tired, you'll be doomed to live the rest of your life without sleep, which is effectively a death sentence anyways. Ever since this SCP has been discovered, the numbers have been thinned, but there's still many of them on the loose and at large. Number 4 on this list is SCP-3129. SCP-3129 is a very strange SCP that can't really ever be caught because it's just a phenomenon that occurs. That being said, we need to develop some way to either catch it or stop it from happening because it's very detrimental to our society. There are 3 stages to this SCP. The first stage, as described by the Foundation, is when phenomena invariably focus upon a human male aged somewhere between 40 and 50, hereafter designated SCP-3129-1. SCP-3129 transmissions can vary in presentation and length wildly, but invariably remain on the topic of SCP-3129-1's apparent election bid. No instances of SCP-3129 have been found outside of the continental United States or present in any non-English languages. So stage 1 is basically something that occurs on television and appears to those who are watching. Stage 2, as described by the Foundation, begins after 2 to 4 weeks of exposure to stage 1 phenomena. Up to 8% of viewers will become fixated upon SCP-3129-1. Civilians more politically aligned with the ideas presented in SCP-3129 commercials are more susceptible to infection. SCP-3129 adverts have not shown any overall political bias. Class B amnestics are effective at treating stage 2 infection.
infection. Now, the final stage that the Foundation describes is an infection displaying fanatical devotion to SCP-31291. They argue with open hostility against opposing viewpoints and ideologies. Stage 3 infected tend to seek out other infected in person and by way of online message boards and communities. This SCP isn't as dangerous as some of the others on this list to our health, but to our society, it's by far the most detrimental. Whatever or whoever SCP-3129 chooses to support, those who witness its occurrence will also feel extremely passionate about the same thing. It's effectively a brainwashing tool that no one is in control of. This SCP completely destroys any sense of democracy and takes away our human free will. I don't know how you could catch something like this, but finding a way to identify it when it happens and interfere with the broadcast, I mean, that's definitely something that we need to be looking into. Number 3 on this list is SCP-169. SCP-169 is one of the SCPs on this list that has the potential to kill millions if it's so desired. The Foundation describes this creature as a marine arthropod of enormous size known as the Leviathan by generations of sailors and oral history. Presumed at first to be a myth, SCP-169 was detected by Mobile Task Force Gamma-6 during an investigation of paranormal activity around the archipelago. During Y6's investigation, a doctor whose name they don't reveal discovered the archipelago to have moved at least 3 kilometers from its original location. Though initially the doctor believed this motion to be due to unusually quick continental drift, a reconnaissance mission performed by the USS revealed the archipelago to be the protrusions of rock-like plates covering an enormous organic mass. The Foundation was brought in immediately to begin threat management. The Foundation goes on to say that they think this arthropod's size is somewhere between 2,000 to 8,000 kilometers long. The Foundation does not specify which archipelago they're talking about, but they do say that if this arthropod was to go deeper into the ocean or the earth, then all these islands would sink as well. The one positive thing about all of this is that the creature is thought to only breathe once every 3 months. This has led experts to believe that it's in a dormant state and it's not fully awake right now. If it did ever become fully awake and aware, then who knows what this creature is capable of doing. I live in Ontario, and the north to south distance of this province is 1,691 kilometers, meaning that this creature could be 2, 3, or even 4 times the size of Ontario. I doubt we'd ever be able to fully catch this beast based on how big it is, but some means of containment, I mean, that would definitely be nice. Number 2 on this list is SCP-3310. SCP-3310 is honestly not much to look at all. In fact, it's just a tree stump that's floating in a lake. But it's what that tree stump can cause that makes it so dangerous. The Foundation describes SCP-3310 as a 9-meter tall tree stump floating in Crater Lake. SCP-3310 is anomalously able to float upright with approximately 1.2 meters of the top remaining above the water at any given time. If removed from the water and returned, SCP-3310 will return to this position. SCP-3310 floats around Crater Lake as a result of non-anomalous weather patterns. The restriction of this movement causes 2 distinct and possibly linked anomalous phenomena referred to as SCP-33101 and SCP-33102. Previously, activation events were caused by the removal of SCP-3310 from Crater Lake, but recent activation events have occurred while SCP-3310 remained in Crater Lake. Both of these phenomena demanifest after the triggering cause for the manifestation is ended. Now, the first of these phenomena that the Foundation is referring to will cause a great fog to appear over the surrounding areas with torrential rainfalls. In some of the events that have happened, over 3 meters of water have rained down in a very short amount of time, causing massive flooding. The second phenomena has several unknown humanoid entities appear and flock to this tree stump. The entities change depending on the time this happens, and no one has any idea who or what they are. This is why this SCP needs to be stopped and captured. Floods aren't great, but we can deal with those. The entities and what they are capable of, though, is completely unknown to us. One time this happens, they may decide to attack us humans, and without any knowledge of their strength, we might not be able to stop them. For now, we can at least take comfort that we know where this SCP will be, but capturing and containing it should be at the forefront of the Foundation's mind. Number 1 on this list is SCP-973. SCP-973 is a very unique SCP that only manifests itself on a 60-kilometer stretch of highway, but it's certainly one of the deadliest that I've come across. The SCP Foundation describes this as being 2 entities. SCP-931 is a police cruiser resembling those used by state troopers in the early 1970s. The vehicle appears to be in an advanced state of disrepair. Eyewitnesses' accounts have consistently mentioned large dents in the doors and hood, a heavily cracked windshield, heavy rusting, and a loose rear bumper secured with duct tape. SCP-932 is reported as a Caucasian male in his late 40s wearing a state trooper uniform dating from the same time period as SCP-9731. Subject is described as balding, slightly overweight, and having a handlebar mustache. Now, nobody knows for sure how this SCP came to be. Some people speculate that this was an old police officer who died along this road and now haunts it. If that is the case though, he was very serious about his job because he only shows up on this highway for a very specific event. It needs to be at night, it needs to be on this stretch of highway, and there needs to be somebody driving along that road who's going above the speed limit. If all of those things are met, then SCP-973 has the potential to materialize and will begin chasing down the person driving. While this is happening, the target's radio will simultaneously start malfunctioning and repeating over and over again, "Run." Over the years, 34 bodies have been found and 19 vehicles have been discovered. I would go into detail about how these bodies were discovered, but it's honestly so graphic that YouTube would definitely flag this video. There have only been 5 survivors and they've all had serious mental trauma from this experience. I'm not sure how you'd catch SCP-973, but something has to be done to stop these brutalistic deaths from continuing. Number 5 on this list is SCP-028. SCP-028 is hard to describe because it doesn't have any distinguishable qualities to it. It's located directly in the center of an abandoned storage yard, so one could make an argument that the center pocket of air is the item in question or that the entire storage yard is the problem. Either way, this thing definitely needs to get locked up forever. The Foundation writes, subjects entering SCP-028 are, within 3 to 6 seconds, struck by total and complete knowledge of a subject. This knowledge is thus far completely random in both size and usefulness, and sometimes goes unnoticed for extended periods of time. More profound knowledge generally has a stronger effect with some cases. This effect can be experienced multiple times by exiting and re-entering SCP-028, but can result in increasingly strong migraines and dizziness after 2 exposures. Now, you're probably thinking that this is freaking awesome and something that we should use to our advantage, but the problem is you don't get to decide what knowledge you attain. The Foundation did a few experiments with this thing and documented them. In one of those experiments, they say that the subject began to cry and went into a fetal position, showing signs of high distress. Unresponsive to questioning and outside stimulus for several days. Lapsed into catatonia shortly after stating that this is not life. Subject passed into a coma and died shortly after. Cause of death was attributed to shock. So that's kind of the big problem with something like this, guys. Learning everything about something sounds great in theory, but in practice might be too much for us to handle. We aren't omniscient beings, and potentially our bodies weren't made to be able to become omniscient beings. This is just one of those things that we aren't ready for yet. So for now, I say we gotta lock it up and not mess with it. Number 4 on this list is SCP-846. SCP-846 is honestly pretty cute. The Foundation writes, SCP-846 is a plastic toy robot measuring 20 centimeters in height and 5 centimeters in width. The bottom of SCP-846's right foot bears the text Robo Dude, now with voice command action, by Dr. Wondertainment. Signs of paint chipping and minor damage to SCP-846 indicate that it's roughly 10 years old, although attempts to question SCP-846 on this have been ignored. So it's just a tiny little robot. How much harm can this thing cause? Answer: a lot. First off, when this thing is turned on, it appears to be so well programmed that some people think it's sentient. That hasn't been confirmed, but it responds very well to any question that's asked of it. Second, and most importantly, it has 350 robo-accessories. Okay, so what? A robo-accessory doesn't sound so bad. Well, how about if that robo-accessory is an atomic grenade? Flamethrowers, hydrogen guns, laser beams, you name it, this robot carries it. All you need to do is ask it to utilize one of its robo accessories, and then out from its stomach pops whichever one you've requested. This tiny kid's toy is basically the world's largest and most advanced armory in the entire world. It has weapons that we're not even close to being able to comprehend, which are so powerful that they could literally end the world. If this toy was to end up in the wrong hands, then we might all be done for. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that whoever owns this robot could easily take over the world too. If you could threaten the use of an atomic grenade whenever you wanted, then you automatically become very powerful. Lock it away and throw away the key. Or honestly, better yet, maybe just destroy it. Number 3 on this list is SCP-155. SCP-155 is described by the Foundation as a complex electronic construct consisting of highly modified Cray CS6400 supercomputer, a dedicated radioisotope thermoelectric generator, and a device that has yet to be fully reverse engineered. SCP-155 was recovered from the basement of Prometheus's lab primary research laboratory by elements of Mobile Task Force MU4 following the destruction of the facility and subsequent Foundation intervention. When a program and accompanying data is loaded into SCP-155 and executed, SCP-155 generates a spherical temporal distortion field with a radius of approximately 5 meters. Within this sphere of influence, the passage of time is rapidly accelerated, resulting in a hyperbolic increase in the effective processing power of SCP-155. Execution begins slowly as the processing hardware of SCP-155 is dated, but its effective processing power approaches infinity after approximately 8 minutes and 14 seconds of execution. From fragments of documentation recovered by Prometheus's lab, SCP-155 was used to perform massive calculation jobs that would have taken months, if not years, of processing time with conventional computing devices. So once again, guys, we are dealing with something that actually sounds incredible. A processor that is so fast it could change the way our world is run. However, as I'm sure you're guessing, there's a catch. The catch is that when this thing is used, it generates some radiation. A lot of radiation. The longer it processes, the more radiation is generated, and this can reach incredibly dangerous levels. It's even thought that if this thing was left processing for too long, then we could cause some world-ending scenarios. A processor that is so fast and smart, but also capable of totally changing our world's climate and killing all of us in the process. As tempting as it would be to use this thing and advance tons of stuff, it just isn't worth the risk. At the end of the day, our planet is the most important thing that we have. We have to protect it, and in this case, it means locking this thing up for good. Number 2 on this list is SCP-310. SCP-310 is extremely dangerous and needs to stay locked away forever. It's just a tall white candle, nothing too intimidating on the surface. The flame on the candle isn't too big either, but it never goes out. Unless it's immersed in water or some other substance to inhibit the flame, this flame will always go. Even if you put it in water and then take it out, the flame will immediately reappear as if it was always there and never went out at all. This isn't too dangerous, just don't burn yourself on the candle. The problem is how this flame interacts with other flammable objects. The Foundation writes, any flammable or semi-flammable substance which comes into contact with SCP-310 becomes ignited with a slow-spreading fire. Unlike the flame of SCP-310, this fire cannot be extinguished by any known means other than exhausting its fuel supply. Experiments have shown that the fire will continue to burn even in a vacuum, underwater, in a nitrogen-saturated environment, under intense airflow, in a refrigerated environment, encased in a fire retardant covering, or any combination of the above. Only total consumption of all flammable material in contact with the flames will result in them becoming extinguished. Therefore, in the case of accidental ignition, especially of personnel, separating the lit section from the rest of the object as soon as possible is the only way to preserve the rest of the exposed object. So that means that once something gets lit with this flame, it's not going to stop until it's completely destroyed. Think about how horrible that could be to society. You could burn down entire cities, maybe even countries to the ground with this one tiny little candle. Obviously, for this reason, it needs to be locked up forever, preferably in some water containment facility to prevent any accidents from potentially taking place. Number 1 on this list is SCP-173. Guys, I hate this SCP so much, just researching it gave me shivers. The Foundation says that it is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. The object cannot move while within a direct line of sight. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with SCP-173. Personnel assigned to enter container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. In the event of an attack, personnel are to observe Class 4 hazardous object containment procedures. They also go on to say that this thing excretes this reddish-brown liquid, which is apparently a mixture of feces and blood. So first off, this thing is absolutely disgusting. It literally sweats bloody poop and also looks like something picked straight out of hell. Second, the way it kills you is just terrifying. You literally can't ever stop looking directly at it. Directly at this gross creature that wants to murder you. If you blink, you die. If you lose focus for 1 second and you look anywhere else, you die. Honestly, I don't think that this thing needs to be locked up at all, it just needs to be flat out destroyed. If it was up to me, then I'd take SCP-310, the candle that we just talked about, and light this thing on fire so the only thing it can do is burn to death. There's no reason why we should keep this thing around. The only thing it's capable of doing is stinking up a room and killing people. Burn it with fire, and let's be done with it.